Welcome back. I am your man, Tim Vinny. Sorry, I just heard an echo. I heard an echo in my head because I'm still not good at doing this. But we're back. We're live. We actually pressed all the buttons right this time. As you can see, Cliff and I we were talking about before, we desperately need haircuts.
It's
I'll do that tomorrow.
It's rough.
Cliff looking a little better than I am, but dad life. Well, I'm excited. We're here to talk about big boys. I think Cliff said he's gotten a game or two in with Imperial Knights. I've gotten way too many games in with War Dogs. Not to bury the lead a little bit. I play with big boys too. But yeah, we're going to be talking about all this episode's about big boys. We're going to be talking about the big guys. Going to be doing some tier lists because tier lists are fun. So you can go ahead and screenshot it, take our bad takes, and just roast us for the next 2 weeks in Discord, But I mean, that's what they're for, So your comments and your takes just live in infamy on the internet forever and ever.
Yeah. Got a whole channel dedicated to hot take takedown, so feel free to get in there and make fun.
What have you been up to, man, since our last episode?
Oh, boy. Personal stuff. We've got my eldest son's pre-K graduation tomorrow. Super exciting. Turned 5 last week. Got a whole crew in town to celebrate. That's going to be super fun. Like a bunch of in-laws, my sister-in-law and her new baby. It's going to be great. And, work. And I work in higher ed / ed policy, so that's been an interesting time over the last week to 2 weeks, including last 24 hours. And yeah, it's been cool. 40K wise. Really enjoying the fact that Custodians, Knights, Death Watch are all great right now. Awesome baseline picks to just have available to pick up off the shelf. Doing a little bit of hobby work, just a little carry on from the box to the actual assembly this time around. In all honesty, I'm assuming that either some combination of Devastating Wounds revision or Wraith Knight point cost or a combination of the two or Fate Dice adjustment is going to happen to make running 3 Wraith Knights not trivialize everything else in the game. But it's been a really cool hobby experience because they're great models. I didn't really realize until I cracked it open how cool they were. That's it, man. Yeah, just chilling. Mostly chilling. Fully in the beta testing 10th edition mode. How about you?
Yeah. Bunch of practice games. Been doing stuff with Team USA, obviously.
Yep.
That's just been so cool. Just be able to help those guys prep and everything. Back on the camera a little bit. That looks better. Yeah, so that's been really cool because I either get to play games or spectate games, and we're kind of at the mode now where it's when you talk about concepts or lists or factions online, and you're well, I think this has legs, and then people try to talk you out of it and tell you all the bazillion different reasons why it'll fail, and a lot of times those reasons aren't really realistic. The scenarios they're talking about are okay, well, your opponent is everywhere. They're always everywhere at once. They're always going to be able to get the angles they need. They're always going to be able to get the range they need. They're going to have 12 CP. Everything's going to have all the buffs, whatever. And people do that on both sides of the equation too.
Yeah.
It's really cool because in that team type environment, it's kind of encouraged as long as you aren't obviously trolling. If you have a concept and it's been looked at and you're just banging your head against the wall, at a certain point, people are going to be hey, you're probably a little emotionally overinvested. It's probably time to stop putting your head into that wall. But if you have something and it sounds crazy and you can make a good case for it, people will they'll throw up, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Just to make sure that you've kind of done the mental homework. Mm-hmm. But if it sounds convincing enough, especially with TTS, people will be we're already on a call. Let's just try it out right here and now, And it doesn't even take much. It just takes maybe 2 turns, re-rack. Yeah. You go, if you went first, now you go second, do it again. People are yeah, this might be testing out.
Do you think there's something inherent about teams that causes that sort of openness to just try something that seems sort of off meta and let's see what happens because the meta for teams is different?
Yeah, I think so. Just because it's not as binary as singles.
Yeah.
Like case in point, we were talking about this earlier with Fireside. They put out like that little tier list,
Mm.
kind of a preview, and I'm sure they talk about it more. Unfortunately, I've not had time to really listen to it. I'm probably going to save it for my work or my commute to work on Saturday, and I usually listen to like half of it on the way in, half of it on the way back. So I'm sure they'll go into more of it. I thought they had like kind of based on the screenshot, if that is the actual tier list they had. I thought they had Dark Elder and Nids and Grey Knights a little bit low,
Hmm.
but the thing is, like a lot of those. So I think Dark Elder and singles definitely have more play than they mentioned, but Grey Knights and Tyranids have, I think, the issue where they have like good rules, but their damage output like just isn't quite
It's
there.
not there. Yeah.
But in teams, you can kind of have like a situation where you just like you throw them into like onto the grenades, you throw them into the lion's den. You're like, just give me a 10 or just give me the best you can get, and
Right.
they're just kind of like and they're like a lose small type army.
Yeah.
You take a loss, but you're trying to get a small loss. That doesn't help you out in singles. Like it's not worth anything in singles because you just lose.
Yeah.
So what like. But in teams, there is a role for like that type of list. So I think there's value there, and so like that's why, like, I think like certain concepts people are more open to in teams. There's also the situation where like if you come up with like an absolutely like awful list that's like effective but like it's terrible to play, like you could try to like do some like a little gaming and politicking to try to get someone else to pilot it so you don't have to.
Like, please play this troll list so I can see how it
Yes.
goes. Yeah.
But yeah, we've been doing some stuff there. That's been really good. CK has been my pet project.
Mhm.
I went to an RTT. They said, I think I'm coming around in 10th, not because I think my initial takes on it were necessarily wrong. It's just more I've adjusted my mindset on it,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of helped a lot.
Yeah.
And if we have time, I'll go off on a tangent about that later. Or if the question comes up. No, because I think there's valid stuff to talk about. I played an RTT. I didn't really feel like going. I didn't really feel like going a full 3 rounds. I was a little bit tired, a little bit out of it. So I just rolled up with like a Chaos Knight list that I thought would be fun, and it was a Desecrator, a Despoiler with the Gatling, and then the Gatling and the rapid fire battle cannon, just so I had a mix of AP1 and AP2 and high volume, strength 10, strength 6 shooting. I
Yeah.
did thermal because I wanted to be able to shoot at people who were trying to stay out of range of my dogs. So that's why I went with the longer guns. Desecrator, by the way, is the one with a laser and one melee weapon. It gives real ones to like a captain order to dogs.
Yep.
And then I went with the Castellan or the Tyrant for a few chaos players, but with the Castellan loadout. Again, I was just trying to lead into like if you try to stay away from my dogs, my big guys are going to shoot you.
Blast you.
And then my dogs are going to push up. And then I had 4 brigands, which are the double gun dogs. And they were basically just constantly in an aura of cover, and they were hitting on 2s, real 1-1s to hit. It was 7 knights. It shot really, really, really hard. I think all the big knights, and we'll get into this with the tier list. Not to bury the lead. I don't think any of the big chaos knights have enough rules to really efficient shooting by themselves. But if you bring a mix of them and like you kind of you activate one knight and then you basically use that information to determine your targets for the next one, you can kind of make it work. Which is what I did. I lost. Oh, sorry, I won. I won my first round against Dark Elder Lance Spam. I think he could have activated in like a slightly different order and spent his resources better. It made that game a little bit more sweaty for me, but that was my first time sitting on the table, and that man re-rolled more dice in a single game of Dark Eldar than I have in years. Every game of Dark Eldar I've played in 9th edition, that man has re-rolled more dice in that one game that I did all of playing Dark Eldar 9th edition. It was absolutely intense.
Your rerolls, baby. It's all good.
It was something. And then I played against my sparring partner and good friend Ben, another member of Miami Dice. He was running Thousand Suns. Magnus, Scarabrick. I think he had like 1 Mutalith. And then his little tech thing that you'll see very often is he was running the Foot Demon Prince to give stealth. to his big units of rubrics,
Yeah.
and they had the aspiring sorcerers in them to give him the 4 pinfall. And he basically just started everything off the board except for the rubrics and the Mutolith, and it was all hidden. And it was like you had to get within 18. It was -1 to hit, had a 4 pinfall. I pushed up and got like 9 out of 10 rubrics, but I mean it was tough. They're durable.
Yeah.
It was also that weird mission where it's like we set up 5 objectives, and because it was the first RTT at 10th, and not everyone had the cards. Our local RTT said, "Okay, we're gonna do fixed missions." So I'm like, "Well, this kind of sucks for me because I don't get that CP regen
One of the
throwing cards
CP,
away."
that's hard.
Yeah, and the fixed secondaries, like they don't score very aggressively, and like if your opponent doesn't give up anything, like it's really awkward. And then the mission basically said we had to remove the middle objective.
Oh,
so
okay.
So literally I had 2 objectives I could sit on forever. He had 2 objectives I could sit on forever, and he had better secondaries than me, and like all his big targets were off the board. So I'm like, I guess I just have to go forward. And I pushed forward. He came. I didn't have anything to shoot at. He came in. He bounced off me. I bounced off him. Then the second time, he didn't bounce off me, and then I died. And I was like, okay, cool. And then that was a pretty fun day. And then I told the TO, I was like, hey, I'm just tired. I'm done for the day. Like it's just a chill RTT.
Yeah.
Went home, had dinner with my family, my kid, hung out with a little bit. Then just played Diablo 4 the rest of the night.
Love it. Man, I just got to Nightmare, classic Dad Hammer fashion. I beat the game at level 51, which is outrageous. I spent way too much time.
So it sounds like you enjoyed it. Well, I mean, it sounds like you enjoyed yourself then.
Yeah, it's been great. So many times.
I was a dirty poop sucker. I'm already like level 70, so I've actually hit the brakes over the past week or two as we've been getting ready for WTC. It's been fun though. I'm about to. I just rolled a Necro last night, so after the show, I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna play Necro a little
Super
bit.
Fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about Knights. I got some tier lists pulled up. Unless you want your hands on the wheel, do you want to talk about IK first or CK?
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about CK first. I feel like you've got more recent experience in a real game.
Okay, sure. Give me a moment. And let me figure out how to share my screen.
I'll set up a little bit of.
Here it is. I got it. Boom. Share.
Nice.
Right, you see it?
Love
you
it.
See that?
Yep.
All right.
Good.
So let me know if you can see this, because when I tab out, I can't tell.
We can see it. You're good. You're good.
Okay, cool. Give me one moment. All right. So yeah, I've been playing. I'm up to about 20-ish games of CK, and they feel fine. Initially, I was trying to lean into the battle shock. I was trying to lean into the fact they could take demons. Identified pretty early that Nurglings and lone operatives were good, so like blue scraps, changeling, and I've been seeing other people do that too. So I think that stays. My very first game out the gate, I tried to like lean into the battle shock. I took like all the stuff that keyed off the battle shock. I took skull cannons, triggered the battle shock because they're T like 10 or T9, 10 wounds with a 4 pinball. They have a long range gun. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like taking a war dog. I can trigger some battle shock. It'll be cool. Unfortunately, most of the games are kind of decided by the bottom of turn 2 for the most part.
Is that the case? That's the case with just about anything in 10th right now.
That's what it feels like. So it feels like your army rule, so having the battle shock within 12 inches and you're -1 is like neat as kind of like a gee whiz kind of thing. But building into that turn 3 is a little bit rough because it feels like you're basically taking away your early game power. You're deferring it to your your mid game.
Yeah.
And also, and it's just the more you kind of build into that, the less upfront power you have. And a shrewd opponent can kind of like take advantage of that or push that, or you'll just feel less strong. So that's really, again, that's very lead. That's kind of informed my rankings here a little bit. So let's start. Is there a way you can zoom, make this bigger? There we go.
Hey.
Probably a little easier. So, all right. So the first one down here, these are executioners. So unfortunately, like these are cheap pros. They're 140 points. They can't take the indirect. And their special rule is they get I believe they get to reroll hits. I don't even remember. That's how much I've used them. They get reroll hits. I got to look up here to confirm, but they basically get a bonus against units that are under half strength, which is like I don't know. It hasn't really been something that's like come up to me. The big thing that kind of kills them though is their AP1. So they've lost. They basically lost a pip of AP.
Yeah,
they have
tough to time everything's got cover.
Yeah, everything has cover, and usually these guys are kind of in the back of your deployment zone, like kind of with their heels on your home objective, and they're providing long range fire support. And what I found is like unless you're moving forward and you're kind of moving at 45-degree angles to like basically fully exposed models to strip them of cover, everything's just casually getting cover. In addition to these guys, most people are filling up the boards with more terrain because of the towering rules, and that's a little bit more of a meta thing, but that really hurts these guys because they're having to work those narrow angles, but a lot of times they can't see cross the center line of the board because there's so much terrain on the board to fight towering. So I don't think they go down here. I definitely think they probably go here, and I'm willing to move these later on, like after like when we discuss and we kind of have them all there, because I don't want to have a thing where like one bracket is filled with like 10 models and then everyone else has ones and twos.
Listen, that to me is just an indication there's lots of internal choice within a given index.
Sure. All right. So the next one, I'm pulling the stats too, just so I can be absolutely 100% sure. This is the Styrix. So basically, the Megara and the Styrix was kind of like the Megara's like little brother. He didn't really in 9th edition. He wasn't like as cool. He had a Volkite. He had the Claw. He just didn't quite have as many good rules, and people really like that lightning cannon with the Tesla and the ignore cover and all that.
Yeah.
So he didn't really have as much as all that. So this guy, his aura is him and the Megara are the same thing. Basically, they have a 6-inch aura of War Dogs ignore any or all modifiers to ballistic skill or to the hit roll, which is like that's not a bad rule. -1 to hit is a little bit more rare in the game. It seems like they've moved everything more to the wound roll. -1 to wound, +1 to wound, reroll wounds. Yeah, whereas modifiers to the hit roll and rerolls to hits is a little more rare. So if you're used to 8th edition or 9th edition, where -1 to hit was like kind of a nothing burger versus -1 to wound, flip that for 10th edition. So it is a good aura. And then after he shoots, you can basically pin someone. Whatever unit he shoots, you subtract 2 from their move and 2 from advanced charge rolls, which is like okay. I just think he's a little too expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot of points. The utility is nice. That's a lot of points.
The utility is nice, but his shooting, the Volkite shooting for the most part, what they've done with the Volkite is they've given him devastating wounds and then AP 0. Which feels very, very, very slot machiney. But if you don't have a way to reroll those shots or reroll your wounds, it just a lot of times it just feels terrible. So for that, like honestly, I'm going to. I don't know. Like, what do you think? I think he's off the top of my head. He was like 415, I believe. He's a little bit more. He's definitely more expensive than the Codex Knights.
Yeah,
he's not like terribly expensive. He might even be as much as 430.
Yeah,
I'm kind of thinking like lean between balanced and flawed.
Yeah, I think so. He's like, there's nothing wrong with him. He's got like decent support rules. He's got an okay gun. He's got okay melee output. But like, he's not. You're not going to be super disappointed if you roll up to an RTT with him, but at the same time, you're not expecting the world.
Yeah. Tell you what. Let me look up his points, and that is going to inform it right here. He is 440 points. Okay, sorry, he goes down here to fly.
All right, bro.
I thought he was like 415, man. Like those rules are cool, but he has an AP 0 gun and he's 440 points.
In
I
a
don't
world
think
of
that's
sub
enough.
500 point Tyrant chassis, let's no.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro.
All right. This guy, if I can even remember what his name is, the Asterius. He's basically like the big brother to the Porphyrion. He basically has the top missile guns. He has two guns on the ear side of his head, and then he has the conversion beamers. He is generic. He's like a Castellan, like on steroids. Unfortunately, he's not a character, so you can't give him enhancements. You can't give him that -1 armor save or the -1 to AP AOC, which would be really sweet.
Yeah.
But he is T13, 2-up save, 5-up invuln, and 30 wounds. So he's like 6 wounds more than Castellan. The issue is that he's 730 points, which is a little bit rough. His shooting is good, though. Unfortunately, I think, again, he ends up in flawed choice. And I put him down here.
It's just too expensive.
And I'll tell you the reason why. And I'm going to kind of jump the line a little bit. Because of this guy right here. The Knight Porphyrion. He's 85 points cheaper. And he has his missiles up top are basically indirect. He has 2 las cannons, and then he has two magma cannons that are twin linked, so they reroll wounds. They're like strength 18, d6 plus 6 damage. So you fail like 2 saves for a typical vehicle, and you're just done.
Yeah, you're done.
AP is like 4. They reroll wounds. If you stand still, they have lethal hits for some reason, which seems wildly unnecessary, but that's on that strength of weapon with reroll wounds, it's probably equal to or slightly below like rerolling ones to hit as far as like the end game math. Basically, this guy does what a Castellan is supposed to do. So if you take a Castellan and you basically, he's about the price of a he's about the price of a Castellan plus a War Dog, but he shoots twice as hard as a Castellan.
Yeah.
I feel like he's at the top of balanced or at the bottom of strong. Because 645 is, just for reference, is about what a Castellan cost at the end of last edition.
Yeah.
So
people were occasionally unironically taking those guys and just serving them, mysterious guarding them, different faction.
Also, if you have never seen one of these things in real life, this thing is almost twice as big as a regular like Questoris class or a Warren class knight.
It's nearly as big as Warhound. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. This abominant right here, like take him and like make him twice the height, and that's how tall this is. So this guy is actually a really good user/abuser, depending on if you're in the receiving end or not of the towering keyword. You will I don't care if they board up the ruins, you will see right over them. I would say, honestly, I'm kind of thinking like I'm putting it at the top of here, but I'm willing to move it kind of like to the bottom of strong choice. But don't run out and like just buy one of these from Forge World based off what I'm saying here. But like it is, if you have one of these, or if you have one you can borrow, like it is totally worth putting on the table. It's pretty good.
I can see University throw that out on like it's got towering, it's got limited indirect in case towering doesn't handle that for you. Throw a bunch of War Dogs on the table, run them up. This guy's in the back line smashing down vehicles.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, so the next one is the Cerastus Atropos. I was really excited when I saw this one's data sheet, and then I threw it on the table. I was like, "Oh, this looks good," because he's got 2 guns. He's got like a plasma cutter, and he's got this like singularity cannon. And they both have 2 profiles. They both have a smash profile. They both have like a kind of sweep / profile for shooting. Yeah. And then the laser cutter is also a melee weapon, and it has a smash and it has a spread profile. And then I threw it on the table, and it just like wasn't what I was expecting it to be. He's not super expensive. He's 405. The issue is that when he shoots his big mode, he's D3 shots on one gun, he's D6 in the other. And
pretty swingy.
He is super swingy. He He does have fantastic rules though, especially against like towering stuff. So when he shoots a monster or vehicle, he gets +1 to hit. If that monster or vehicle is Titanic or towering, he also gets +1 to wound. And his aura is consumed with hunger. War dogs within 6 inches can reroll hit rolls against Titanic or towering. So if we end up like in a Titanic or towering meta, this guy might be worth looking at, but more because he'll have +1 to wound and the all the war dogs would be rerolling hits. Because on his own, I found him a little too swingy if you low roll the number of shots.
Yep.
And something about a lot of these Forge World Knights that you'll notice when you put them on the table versus your regular Knights is you end up missing that gun, whatever gun that's mounted on the top or whatever gun is mounted on your chest plate, like the pintle gun or stuff like that. Those little incidental shots, you end up really missing those a lot. When I'm activating my big knights, when I'm activating like my despoilers, my war dogs, something like that, it's really nice to be able to be like, okay, well both of my main guns are going into this target, and then my indirect is going over here. Next night, both my big guns are going to this target, my indirect's going over here. And just with this guy and then the Morax, it was a lot of the same thing. So unfortunately, I think
flawed choice.
I think he's flawed choice just because how swingy he is, and he really misses having that third weapon. But I think if we get into a Titanic Tower meta, I think he could go up here to like balanced. But right now,
which if patterns hold out over the next few weeks, that may very well be.
Also, I'm gonna rearrange this a little bit because I don't think the executioner is that bad. I think it definitely looks like this guy here for his rules. This guy here.
Yeah.
Move over here. There. That looks a little better. Okay. The Abominate. I'll be honest, I haven't tested this guy on the table yet because half his rules relate around Battle Shock. He picks something within 12 inches, I believe, and he forces it to do a Battle Shock test. That could be interesting, especially if you take that one enhancement where the bearer of that enhancement, he gets the army rule turn 3 and on. So Battle Shock units that target him are -1 to hit, ranged, and melee. And he's +1 to wound against Battle Shock units, ranged, and melee. In my games, it came up a lot versus Orcs and Genestealer Cult. It didn't really come up for like anyone else, not with the regularity that I could plan on. He does do mortals in aura to everyone within a radius of him. And I want to say it's 9 inches. I think if you're pushing up with carnivores and you have a lot of stuff pushing up anyhow, that could be interesting. If he's the only thing pushing forward, I think they basically just step back and just like focus him down, and you just end up taking a ton of chip damage or losing him for free. But I think if you're pushing forward with carnivores, you're pushing forward with like brigands getting angles, like, as long as you're doing a push towards midboard, I think this guy could be a big deal, especially as he starts people trying to stage behind ruins to push up on you, and they're just taking a round or two of mortals, on every single unit. I definitely think there could possibly be a build there where you just run 3 of these. It seems a little bit memey, but it is something that I would actually consider trying.
Yeah.
Because 3 of these running up, if you've ever played against Necrons in 9th edition when they were running like double Catan, and they were just doing Sky of Falling Stars over and over again.
Yep.
I think you could have a situation where like you push 2 or 3 of these guys up. That could actually do some work. His gun went up in shots, but it went down in AP. It went from AP1 to AP0.
It's got that and precious devastating wounds keyword now.
He has devastating wounds, which most of the Volkite, that's what they've done. They drop the AP off it and give it devastating wounds. That's basically devastating wounds is the Volkite rule essentially. So not much change there. I believe his melee actually got slightly better than it did last edition.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting because for the most part, everyone lost Iconoclast. So the AP and the number of attacks went down across the board. So his AP getting a little bit better is nice, and I think it kind of goes into his role of where he's trying to push forward, almost being like kind of like a shock troop or whatever for the army, where he's pushing forward, he's doing splash mortals, he's forcing battle shock test. I just wish Battle Shock did a little something more, so I think that kind of works against him. and he's a little bit more expensive than a Rampager and a Desecrator. So you're paying more and you're getting less, a little bit of shrinkflation there. But I think this guy's here. I think he's totally fine.
I think so too.
If I saw one of these across the table, like and it starts pushing forward into the center board, like I'd give it respect, if I saw someone running 2 or 3 of them and they start turn 1, they don't even shoot their gun, they just advance right at me. Like now I start actually getting a little bit worried because turn two and on, I'm going to start taking 3d3 mortals every single turn.
Right. And not an insubstantial number of attacks in close combat because these guys, they got like 9 base attacks, just hits. They've got those 3 extras. Like they're doing.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good at chewing up infantry. I don't think he'd be that great into vehicles, but that's fine. I think between doing the mortals and then he runs into tank shocks, like he can get it done. But I think he's definitely strikes me as more of kind of like a frontline brawler. Probably wouldn't take care of like a Terminator type brick by himself, but like definitely if you have lots of infantry, like staging in ruins, he can help flush them out. So I think maybe like 2 of these they push up, they do a bunch of mortals, and then a unit of carnivores spend the CP to like charge through walls and clear out what's left. Like it gives you choices for sure. Yeah. All right, the Megara, man, this guy has brings a tear to my eye. So he's not as expensive as the Styrix. He is 405. Yeah, he's 405. He has the same ability, the Huntmaster, where he lets War Dogs ignore modifiers to bliss skill and the hit roll, which is a good roll. He also automatically repairs D3 wounds at the end of the command phase, which isn't bad. You definitely get to a point. There's a point in every game where, like, as a knight player, where you just know the wheels are coming off the bus, or you know that you're kind of like safe. And this guy kind of pushes the pressure up a little bit more on that, where like he just erases chip damage. In a world where everyone's T12 and getting cover, like that's a big deal. You can quickly get to a point where, like, as long as you aren't pushing this guy super aggressively, your opponent can just be like, watch you heal. He'll erase his chip damage, and he's just like, okay, this is just not getting done like this game. I initially coming into this, I was going to put him here, but I think I've actually talked myself out of it. I think he ends up here.
Interesting. You think he's? I'm not even sure. This, granted, I might be biased because of how far he's come down, but like he lost ignores cover on all his ranged attacks, right? He's got 0 AP. Sustained hits 2 is nice in lightning cannon, but he has no AP in a universe where like 2 and 3 up saves are very prevalent, and +1 of that armor save is everywhere because of how easy it is to get covered out. So you're throwing a bunch of shots with no AP into 2 up saves and hoping for the best.
Yeah, it's not great. So the big thing is his lightning cannon. His lightning cannon went up in shots. It was 8 shots before with Tesla. Now it's 12 with Tesla. Unfortunately, it did go down in damage, but it went up in strength. It was strength 7 before. Now it's strength 9. So it's terrible into vehicles, but pretty decent at infantry. Damage 2 really holds it back. The plasma is roughly the same. It's got some AP, but it's only 2 shots. 4 shots to get close. The rad cleanser just is completely a shadow of what it used to be. It still has anti-infantry 2 up. It ignores cover. It's twin links. You're ruining infantry on 2s, rerolling. But against stuff that's like mounted or cavalry or stuff like nurglings or whatever, stuff like that's not infantry, like you're just not doing anything to. And it's only damage 1. It used to be damage 3. So I think you could probably talk me into looking at the stat line and what you're saying. Like, I think maybe you could probably talk me into this.
Yeah.
Like, how's that feel? Like, he's definitely better than this guy for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Opinion. Yeah, I think it's the AP 0 that hits him, that hurts him the most. Because then make 3 up saves.
It's the reduced lethality before, for sure. Like, you're paying 405 points for a G-Wiz, like, cool rule. And we're gonna see, like, later on down here, if you're paying for, like, exotic rules to kind of like buff your war dogs, I definitely think there's better, than you could do here. I said, I think I do at some point want to throw him on the table because I think that lightning cannon, 12 shots, he probably realistically probably gets like 4s. No, probably gets like 2 6s.
Yeah,
That's 4 extra shots. That's 4 extra shots there. So he probably like fires 12, hits with 12, without any rerolls. That seems like okay. Because he's only ballistic skill 2, so he'll drop 4 hits, but he'll gain 4 hits. That's not terrible. And then strength 9 against infantry. I could definitely see him like kind of chewing up infantry a little bit, but like you definitely kind of want your big boys to be shooting at vehicles, not infantry. But yeah, I think this guy, looking through him, I definitely want to test him a little bit more. But I'm kind of thinking that compared to all these other ones we're going to talk about, I think you might be right. All right, the knight Acheron, who is probably my favorite Cerastus knight. Let me go ahead and pull up his thing.
Man, the Cerastus knight chassis has got a massive
he is, yeah. Well, and they're going to be getting a plastic kit too. So, and I think we've seen like leaks of the sprues that I respect.
Yeah, they're coming.
Something in me like feels like we won't see a plastic Atropos because it's got that kind of Mechanicus vibe.
That's true.
And it's got a really weird loadout. I'd be pleasantly surprised if we did, but I don't think we will. But I would honestly just run a plastic Cerastus and then get like third-party weapons, just put it on there called Atropos. But yeah, I'm very excited about the Cerastus models. I think they're the coolest looking knights. So I'm excited to see these guys get a glow up. So this guy, he's 405, which is pretty standard run of the mill for your abhorrent type class. Even though he's Cerastus. Cerastus knights have, I want to say, 3 more wounds than abhorrent, and they move a little quicker. They move about 2 inches quicker. Most of the abhorrents move 10. Most of these guys have like one ability that affects them and then one ability that affects war dogs. His ability that affects himself is when he hits someone with a flamer, it loses cover, which is very good this edition. The second one is Unrestrained Terror. War dogs within 6 inches. Basically, everyone that is within engaged range of a war dog that is within 6 inches of these guys has to take a battle shock test. Unfortunately, that doesn't really do anything in my experience, because even with the carnivore, just generally, I have found that I haven't really been able to like clear out like bigger units of power armor, or especially like bricks like Terminator equivalent. I don't really do real damage into them unless I commit to like 2 or more carnivores.
Yep.
And we're talking about like 2 carnivores, maybe tank shock, shooting them a little bit before I go in. Like it's a serious, like if someone puts up brick of Terminators and they don't let me shoot them for a couple turns, which, you know, I don't understand why they don't let me shoot their Terminators. Like, please let me shoot your Terminators, but they don't. And so it requires a pretty substantial commitment. And it would be nice to force a battle shock and then they fail and they're -1 to hit you and you're +1 to wound them. But realistically, they usually will just not fail. You know, you can't bank on it. It's just kind of nice when it happens.
Yeah,
nice. And a lot of times, like I said, most of the games have been extremely fast paced, and I feel like the army rule just turns on like a battle round too late. We would be having a whole different conversation if Chaos Knights, if they got their second part of their rule, like turn 2.
They did like turn 2 or even turn 1. I mean, like, I don't know. It's a meme.
Yeah. Well, I think they kind of want to do the thing they did with 9th edition, where it's like it kind of like snowballs. You know, as you get more and more afraid, and as the warp storm moves in, things just get worse and worse. But we're playing Index, so they trimmed it down to just two stages. I just think it should just probably be like stage 1, like round 1 and then round 2. But that's a whole nother topic. So basically, his flamer with the stripping cover is great. His aura, unfortunately, is not great, and in my opinion, the strongest part of Chaos Knights is the War Dogs. So you really want a synergistic rule if you're going to bring one of these guys. His weapon is good though. It's 18-inch flamer, which is fantastic, especially because you can push him forward, threaten Overwatch from people. It ignores cover. It's AP1, so it's functionally AP2.
That's huge.
It's damage 2 to strength 8. It's 2d6 shots.
Yeah.
He also has a twin heavy bolter that's twin linked, so It's 3 shots, strength 5, AP 1, damage 2. Unfortunately, it might as well be AP 0 because of cover, but it does reroll wounds. It's not terrible. He has his melee weapon is pretty good. 4 attack smash, 12 attack sweep, strength 14, AP 4, damage 6 for the smash, and then 932 for the sweep. So it's pretty decent as far as knight melee goes.
Yeah.
Most knights in general melee now, unless they're like dedicated melee knights, have 4 attacks, so that's pretty standard. But 14-4-6 is a really good profile.
It hits, yeah. We'll get there. Work done against vehicles. That ignores cover difference, just like real quick. This is why I'm like so sour on the Megaris. Megaris got like decent gun, 802, sustain hits. He should be coming in there hit with 12 attacks, right? He's got to roll a wound. He has to roll a hit. Hopefully that comes out in their favor. But like, say you're shooting at Marines and cover, they're saving on 2-ups. So like, they're like, here you go, make a bunch of saves. And I'm like, you got it. I will make a bunch of saves on 2s. Versus this guy who's coming in, auto hitting, ignoring the cover, and has the 8 point of AP. It's like, here are some saves. Now you're rolling. You're rolling 4. Different.
I would put him here, except for the fact that his aura. Like I said, all these big knights. You want him to do like things, and he really does like one as far as the special rules. His aura just doesn't really come into effect in the game at all.
Yeah.
His flamer with the ignoring cover and stripping cover is cool. However, there's another knight that does that and does it better. And I'm going to skip ahead. This guy right here, the Knight Tyrant. I don't think he's mandatory, so I'm not going to put him up here.
Yeah.
But I do think I think the Valiant version with the flamer is a little bit better than the Castellan version with the guns. But there's an enhancement that you can take that reduces your armor reduces the AP of incoming attacks by 1. It works in shooting and melee. And vehicles, including Titanic, can get cover now.
Yep.
So functionally, this guy has
0 up.
he basically has a 0 up against shooting and a 1 up against melee.
Yep.
And he's T13, which is a huge break point. This guy is not. This guy's T12. This guy is T13. He gets a flamer. On top of that, he also gets 2 missiles, which are basically like dark lances, with D6 plus 1 damage, strength 12. He gets the little crap gun up top. He also gets a harpoon, which is ballistic skill 2 for some reason, and has devastating wounds, anti-vehicle, anti-monster 4 up. So if you hit the 2, and then you hit the 4, whatever you're shooting just takes 12 mortals if it's a vehicle or monster.
Yep.
So that's a little bonus, but it's really the flamer.
Yeah.
And I don't love this guy in IK, but in CK, the fact that you can spend a CP and just walk through walls makes that 8-inch boot way more palatable.
That is, oh god, that makes me so happy that they recognized how big a piece of playing that stratagem was. So great.
That stratagem is key to making Chaos Knights work, in my opinion. This guy, when I play him, I usually, for turn 1, you can usually, if you can see anything at all, you usually can only shoot the missiles if you're running the harpoon version.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times turn 1, like I start him on the line or I start him behind a wall depending on what the output is, and then I just turn 1, I just advance him. And my goal is to get him into the range of the middle objective by turn 2.
Yep.
And at that point, like he has a 12-inch deep strike deny aura, and then he has a aura of cover to war dogs within 6 inches. Even if they're fully visible to you, even if they're closer to you, as long as they're within 6 inches of you, they get cover. So he just has a lot going for him. The Castellan version with the Volcano Lance and the Ectoplasma it's not bad. The plasma is it's like D6 plus 3 shots at like 9, 2, 3. Which is not bad. And then the Volcano Lance is D3 shots at strength 18, AP 5, damage, yes.
Yeah.
So it's not
damage, strength 20.
Yeah. Wow. Actually, there you go. Yeah. So it's not bad. It's just like the shooting isn't super reliable. If he's the only long range gun platform you have in your army, you're gonna feel that lack of reliability. But he's not super expensive. He's $485. So that gives you plenty of room for other guns. So if you take multiple gun platforms, like what I did last weekend is I ran him, a Despoiler, and a Desecrator. Between the 3 of them, like it felt like I had plenty of long range shooting. They basically because I never had a turn where all 3 of them whiffed. And as I'm activating one at a time, like I would just change my target priority based on what the previous one did.
Yep.
So again, I don't think this guy is going to be in every single list. So I think that cuts him out of here. I do think he is priced competitively enough and he has unique enough rules that are relevant and strong and synergistic that this is something you could build around. So I definitely feel comfortable putting here as a strong choice. All right. Next, everyone's favorite Chaos Knight. I don't know about you. I'm assuming it's your favorite Chaos Knight because you're a mana class. The Rampager. This guy is. I have not put him on the table yet. I've just been dying for an opportunity to. I think the lack of guns and the fact that towering is so meta defining right now.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any guns. That it just kind of feels like 9th edition, where everyone's just shooting you for free. However,
it's one of those things where like it's not the model's fault. It's just a byproduct of the nature of the rest of the rules of the game.
Yes, exactly. However, is one thing that pulls this guy back from the brink, and that is rapid ingress. I think there's a world where you have this guy and you have a bunch of war dogs who are hiding, and you're just kind of like pushing up the field. And you're just kind of biding your time, and then you are using your havoc launchers to kind of like whittle down their screens. And especially if you don't go first, if you go second, I really like rapid ingress plays where I lose the first turn roll off and I have to go second, because otherwise you're in a situation where like you want to rapid ingress, you move first, and then bottom of turn one they move, and that's where you really see these juicy opportunities to rapid ingress, but you can't because you're still in the first battle round.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you go second, they go, then you go, then they go again, and you rapid ingress right then and there. Yep. And then bottom of turn two, you get to really pull off some good plays. But I think there is a world, and I think there's a concept that I think is worth testing, where this guy just goes in reserves because you reserve now for free. He rapid ingresses, and his special ability is once per game he can advance and charge. So he comes on from reserves, outflanks. You spend a CP to rapid ingress. You activate the advance and charge. You spend a CP to run through a wall, or you just run through the wall in the charge phase. You are going to be spending a CP to go through a wall at some point. And just like that scene from X-Men with like Juggernaut like running through like 20 walls, you do that with this guy. And then you spend another CP and you just give your opponent the tank shot of their lives as you roll like 22 dice and do 6 mortals away.
You're gonna take 6 mortals, bro. Also, these are all sustained hits one. Yes, I'm rolling 18 dice to hit.
Yep.
I'm gonna pick those up or not.
And he gives a reroll 9-inch or Captain Aura reroll ones to carnivores. So if you didn't get the word about 10th edition being a shooting meta and you just want to live your own truth, just run this guy and 6 carnivores, and then after that, like, who cares what the rest of your list is?
But don't leave him on the table if you can avoid it. Like, reserve that bad boy. Definitely.
Yeah, I think this guy is great with rapid ingress out of reserves. Okay, if this guy is not like the most balanced, I don't know what it is. I believe it's cheapest. This guy might actually be. I can't remember. The Rampager is $395. The Desecrator is $390. This is our cheapest knight. His gun got better. It basically has the Relic Diamonis built in now. So you get a 3rd shot. Your ballistic skill 2 now. So really likely, I believe you have a greater than 50% chance to just connect with all 3 shots on the hit roll.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how math works.
No, you're good. That is accurate.
So whereas before when you were hitting on 3s with 2 shots, now you're hitting on 2s with 3 shots. The strength isn't quite at a high enough break point where you're wounding vehicles on 2s, but it does have devastating wounds now. And I believe you have a coin flip chance, or just slightly less than a coin flip chance of getting 1/6 every time you activate this guy. Funny enough, I didn't realize till after I was a couple games in, the Devastating Wounds ability is tied to the data sheet when he targets a vehicle or monster, not to the gun itself. So
Yeah.
make sure you don't split fire that stubber. Shoot the stubber at the vehicle too. You'll probably get a mortal wound out of it.
Add some mortals in there for sure.
Yeah, because if you're rapid fire, it's 6 shots. Hitting on 2s, drop 1. You know, you'll probably be wounding on 6s, but if you wound, it's immortal. So it's not bad. He gives rerolls of 1s to your shooting knights within 9 inches. And you can take a melee weapon him. Unfortunately, he only has 4 attacks with the smash profile, which is pretty par for the course for knights. However, again, you're going to be noticing a lot of the stuff that needs CP. I do think Chaos Knights love tactical objectives, so you can discard them for extra CP. This guy is not bad in a pinch of melee because you go in, you tank shock someone.
Yep.
So I really like him in a balanced list with a bunch of brigands and a bunch of carnivores, because the carnivores can kind of help him out in melee. And he lets the brigands hit on 2s and reroll 1s, make it very accurate. So I would put him. I'm thinking here. I'm going to put him right behind Mr. Shooty Man, because if you want to shoot 2 things dead every turn, like this is your man.
He's still good at that.
Straight up. But beyond that, like these 3 right here are kind of like your Codex Knights that all do a special thing, and I think I'm actually going to do this. But this is roughly about where they want to be. Like they're totally balanced. They're totally fine. You kind of pick your choice. They're not too expensive. The rules are mostly always relevant. They're good at multiple phases for the most part, except for this guy. These are just good knights all around, and you don't have to feel bad about throwing them on the table. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
No, I think you're right. Like, none of these guys are bad. They're not ultra strong on their own or with their support, but they do a little bit of work. Yeah, I think these guys are balanced. They look good. I think for sure the Rampager over the Bomb Knight, because they're sort of similar roles, but the Rampager gives you a little more flex. Especially with the rapid ingress move.
Exactly. And plus you get style points. So next up, getting more back to the War Dogs, the Huntsman. So this guy is pretty cheap, 145 off the top of my head. He can't take the indirect. His choice is either a melt gun up top or the stubber. But his special rule is he gets to, and he's forced to take the Demon Spear, which is strength 12, 8 to 4, D6, melt to 4, 24 inches. Good weapon. Then he has his chainsaw with 4 attacks, 8 attacks with the sweep, 4 attacks to smash. But his special rule is he gets to reroll 1s to wound and then damage against vehicles and monsters. These guys are honestly like a little bit underrated. I think all the rest of the knights, like they're all kind of like sexier, if that makes sense. So these guys don't get talked about a bunch, but the couple times I've thrown them on the table and they've been relevant, they've been really good. The 2 shots for the Melta and then that extra shot for the Melta gun. It's really nice when you basically have a built-in lieutenant reroll, and then you also don't, when you're going into that hard target like Magnus or Terminator or something like that, you finally manage to get them to fail a save. You don't have that feels bad where you flub it and you roll 1 in the damage.
Roll 1, yeah.
And it's especially
out like that is such a big deal.
Yeah, it's also really nice when you get within 12 inches for the Demon Breast Spear, and you roll the 1 and then you get to reroll it, so you're getting at least 6 damage through on the Demon Spear on a failed save, which feels good. Again, I've alluded to it multiple times. I'm of the opinion that the unique thing that Chaos Knights really have that would make you want to run them over Imperial Knights is their War Dog chassis and the walk through walls strat. And I think these guys leverage those fine. I'm going to put them up here at strong choice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They could be here. They could be here. I don't think it really makes much of a difference, to be honest. Okay, next one, Stalker. These guys, a little bit of a mixed opinion. I don't love them, but if you take a pure War Dog list, you're going to be forced to run them because they are a character. If you try to run, they're also the cheapest War Dog at 135 points, so that definitely bears in mind. And because they're part of the new kit, they have access to the newer weapons like the Havoc launcher, the chain cannon, the slaughter claw. Their special ability is when they target a enemy unit that is not within 6 inches of any other friendly enemy units, they get +1 to wound. If there was more chaff in the game, that would really come up into play with the chain cannon and the slaughter claw, not the slaughter claw, the chain sword. It can sometimes come up for the Havoc launcher. It can be kind of nice if you're punching into kind of like tougher stuff that's out on the flank alone. But the fact that they can take enhancements and that they let you open up a pure War Dog list makes them pretty good, in addition to being the cheapest. These guys are great also with these enhancement for 25 points to make an objective sticky if you control it in your command phase. Because sometimes you might run into a situation where you're kind of like, okay, well, if I throw this knight out into that objective in the open, they can survive for 1 turn. I'm okay with losing it because they don't have anything to put on that objective, and I don't have to worry about that objective for like the rest of the game. But with your big knights, what I was running into is my big knights want to go one direction to try to get angles on the stuff, whereas the objective I want sticky was kind of far away. And if I went over there, I would lose all that shooting for the big knight, and it forced me these like awkward push-pull kind of decisions. So I definitely like taking like one of these guys with the sticky objective if I can afford it, or if you're running a pure dog list, like you have to run one. I think the chain cannon is unfortunately not very effective at AP1.
Yeah.
Although I don't hate it, but I generally think that if you run these guys, you run them with the Melta, you run them with the Slaughter Claw, and then you run them with the indirect launcher. And it just ends up being a good value piece.
Gosh, it's so different than just what a difference a few weeks make, right? Like chain cannon was so good 2 months ago. Now you're just like,
chain cannon is still good on a particular platform, and we will get there. I will put these guys right here. I think maybe the Huntsman might be a little bit more valuable, but like I think if you're running pure dogs, I think I end up like running like 1 or 2 of these guys for a run here. The other thing I'll have to mention is if you run the 14 dog list, the only way to really make it fit is to run a lot of these guys, which then opens you up to people just picking assassinate, bring it down to you, and you end up in a really rough spot as far as secondaries. All right, this guy, basically kind of like the big brother to the Rampager. This is the Lancer. So this guy has, that shield is not for show. He has a 4-up invuln all the time.
All the time.
All the time. And pull up his data sheet.
He's so good.
He moves 14, so he is fast, and he is fantastic with the Knights of Shade stratagem to move it. Unfortunately, he does not advance in charge like the Rampager does. But moving 14, like that kind of goes a long way to like make up for it. I think he kind of sometimes has the same issues the Rampager does. He's quite a bit taller. He's about 30% taller than the abhorrent knights. So with towering, he's a lot easier to get a little bit chewed up and take more damage you like on the way in. He actually does have a ranged weapon, that lance. He can like kind of like point it at people and taser them.
12-inch range, same too.
12-inch range, 6 shots. It's strength 6, AP 0, damage 2, but it's got Tesla, all the lightning bolts coming out of it. It's cute. It chips. It's not bad. The melee weapon though slams. He can do sweep or smash. If he smashes, he has 5 attacks, which is one more than a typical knight, but is pretty typical for a pure melee knight. They tend to have more attacks than the more balanced loadouts. Weapon skill 2, strength 20, AP 3, damage 8, and it has lance. So a strength 20 with +1 to wound. So you're winning literally anything on the game on 2s when you charge.
Yeah, with -3 AP, doing 8 damage each.
But also he lets you use tank shock stratagem on him for 0 CP, even if you use it somewhere else. So if you really want to go for big style points, you can charge with the Rampager, and then you can charge here, and you can tank shock the Rampager for 1 CP, and you can tank shock here for 0 CP. You'll do 12 mortals, and then you start. If you can set that up, like my hat is off to you, because that's big style points, and whatever you hit is almost assuredly dead. His aura is not bad either. It's basically all war dogs at the 6 inches of him. Their ranged weapons have assault, which is pretty cool. So he basically speeds up your army. So there's there's a world where I think like maybe you run this guy, maybe you run a rampager, you run both, and then you run probably a mix of carnivores and brigands. Again, lead, and that could be a pretty fun list.
This again is one of those spots where I'm like, God, towering and ranged output is just so powerful right now in the game. However, this guy's close combat potential is like sky high.
Well, and he has a 4-up invuln all the time, so you don't have to spend CP to rotate. And he has
got more wounds.
He's faster. Well, he has his 4-up invuln is melee as well.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put this guy up here.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's really good, man. So the free tank shock, I love his aura. That aura doesn't. It sounds like neat, and then you put that type of thing on the table, you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
You basically your brigands hit on 3s, but they get to advance and shoot now and catch angles. This guy is just absolutely thunderous when he goes through a wall, and just having the 4-up invuln that's on all the time is tremendous.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like if you reframed his war dog buff as like add D6 move to all your war dogs in a radius.
Exactly.
It's like, oh yeah, that's what's happening. Holy shit.
Or you run that situation where your opponent's like, okay, I'm -1 to hit. And you're like, okay, cool. Now all my war dogs are going to move extra D6. Like, thanks. So I'm not really sure what happened here where like Canis Rex popped in. But this is our spoiler. So I would say I hate this guy, but I mostly just love him. If you just want output in a very selfish platform and you just want to leverage towering, this is the man for you. So he can basically take the rapid fire battle cannon, which comes with the underslung stubber, which is D6 plus 3 shots off the top of my head, but it's 72 inches in rapid fire. So realistically, most times you're going to be 2d6 plus 6, and it's blast. So if you shoot a unit of 5, you're going to be 2d6 plus 7. And if you shoot a unit of 10, you're going to be 2d6 plus 8. It's AP1 though, so you're going to live and die with that loadout based on how well you can cut angles to deny cover. He can take a Havoc Launcher up top, which is the one I like the most. It's exactly the same as the Warlock Havoc Launcher. You just get it's D6 plus 1 shots. And then he has or you can take an autocannon that has an anti-fly, or you can take a rocket launcher that gives you a little bit extra of like strength 8 D6 damage type anti-tank shooting. It's okay. I think you just take that indirect. His other choices are the Gatling, which is 36-inch range, 6.22, 18 shots.
Lord, double Gatling is
pretty gross. You kind of run into a situation where like you're winning on 5s versus vehicles, but with AP2 and damage 2 and that many shots, like it almost doesn't matter. You'll just chew them down. Between this guy and the War Dogs, you'll get it done. He is scary. And he also has a floating. You can reroll 1 hit or 1 wound roll when you activate him, which is really funny with the double thermals because the thermal cannon is 24 inches, 2d3 shots, strength 12, AP 4, D6 damage, melt to 6. So your D6 plus 6 damage when close range. Off the top of my head, if my memory serves me correctly. Whenever I ran him with double thermal, though, he just got every gun in the world pointed at him. He just suffered critical resistance failure, usually by the top of turn 2 or the bottom of turn 1. But I think there's play with double thermal out of reserves. Or you can start him. What I was running, I was liking rapid fire battle cannon plus Gatling, or double Gatling sounds good. Double rapid fire battle cannon, the AP was just a little too low. He gives an aura of like reroll battle shock test or leadership test for war dogs. Like it never comes up. But he has so much raw output on his own that I absolutely am putting here a strong choice. Possibly even here. This guy is cool and he's really hard to kill. And some armies just can't deal with him, but other armies just will just Devloon him out of existence or ignore him. This guy makes his presence known in every single game. Now sometimes they basically, he draws all the fire for the rest of your army and then he dies before he ever gets to fire a shot. But this guy does work. He's just kind of a selfish model. All right, we're almost done. The Castigator, we're kind of saving the best for last here. This wasn't planned. Cliff, Cliff, how would you feel if you had your despoiler with a single Gatling cannon, but he moved 4 inches faster, had 3 extra wounds, and his Gatling cannon got to reroll wounds? Would you like that?
That sounds amazing. What's the tax I'm paying for those bonuses?
Oh, the tax you're paying is you're paying about like 15 points. Oh, and we're not done. He also has a 6-inch aura of ranged weapons for your war dogs have exploding sixes.
What are we doing? Straight to the top.
Straight to the top. Straight to the top. Right there. Yeah, for about 25 points more than a Desecrator, you get a buff that's almost twice as strong. So a Desecrator is reroll ones to hit. This guy, the aura is a little bit tighter, 6 inches versus 9 inches, but it's functionally +1 to hit. With a great gun, and it's okay melee, and he's a little bit more durable because he's got the extra wounds and he's a little bit faster. I think it's the way Chaos Knights is shaping up. These guys here are like fine. No one's really going to make fun of you if you run them. These guys up here, you probably would run 1 or 2 big knights, but each one has like some special thing they do that is worth building around. And that's generally at a competitive point cost. And I think that's generally what kind of makes the difference. So yeah, this guy, I love this guy. Looking forward to getting more games with him soon. All right, the Carnivore. This guy, a little expensive. He's 160 points. But the thing is Chaos Knights shoot way harder than they do in 9th edition, and 1,000 points of Chaos Knights is enough to make people just hide their entire army behind a wall, and you need ways to dig them out. The Havoc launchers just don't do it by themselves. Thankfully, we have a strat to go through walls, and we also have these guys who move 14 inches. They move tremendously fast, and they have reroll charges built in. They also have the old Iconoclast aura built in, or buff built in. So it's 6 attacks with the claw at weapon skill 2, strength 12, AP 3, D6 plus 2 damage. Or you can do the sweep attack with the chainsword. There's never a reason to do the smash with the chainsword. There was reasons in 9th edition based on how much AP versus how much damage you needed.
Those days,
right? But now in 10th edition, the claw is just strictly better if you're going for the smash. There is a strat that I love to use with these guys. One is tank shock. The other one is where you pick at the start of the shooting or the fight phase. You pick as many war dogs that have as you want, and you pick one unit that's eligible target for all of them. They can only target them, but they get exploding sixes. If you tag team a unit with a pair of carnivores, that's a really good strat to just give your carnivores exploding sixes, get them up to the 100% hit rate average. That's 12 swings. You're probably twos or threes if they have like a -1 to wound. And then usually if you're going to bricks, every failed save is a dead model. Or if you're going to vehicles, you really mess it up. Combined with tank shock, they're just really good. I think the more games I've played, I've tried to skip on these guys, and 0 felt like trolling because people would just hide behind walls, and you would lose to walls and you'd lose to lone operatives. That made me feel really dumb. When I ran 2, people would just kind of push up and would chew them up. Like they would catch angles to them and they would just try to chew them up on the way in. And then you kind of ended up with these awkward situations where like, well, I could bust through that wall, but there's a coin flip chance I die through to an Overwatch before I ever make the charge.
Yep.
Right now I'm running like 5, which has been good because now it's kind of like I put like 2 or 3 in reserve. It gives me opportunities to come in on the flanks, to do rapid ingress, to just bring in 3 all at once, and to try to like make like 6 charge rolls, while 2 of them push up and push through walls while everything else is shooting. So I think these guys, you have so much shooting here. I think you really
you need those guys. Yeah,
you need them to. That's what I'm thinking. I think you're gonna see these in every single list, because you end up being kind of like DJ Khaled, kind of suffering from success with all the guns, and this is your answer right here.
Yeah, so keep people honest.
All right. Unfortunately, I don't know where my Morax one went, but I'll tell you what, the Morax is going to go down here in flawed choice, maybe at the top of it because the Graviton pulsar is pretty good at 6'2", at 623. It's 170 points though, and it doesn't have a top gun.
Yeah, it's
And
the
it
price
is
kicker for them.
yeah. So, but it is strictly inferior to these guys right here, the Brigand. For 150 points, you get 2 Strength 12, 24-inch melta shots. You get an indirect Strength 5, AP0 damage 1, D6 shot blast launcher with 48-inch range, I believe. You get the chain cannon, who's been reduced to 24 inches, but it's pretty much the same stat line as before. It's Strength 6, AP1 now, damage 1 with 12 shots. But Brigands went up to Ballistic Skill 2. If you've ever played Brigands as Dreadblades with Worthy Offerings in 9th edition, you know how big of a deal that is when you're shooting at vehicles. And it makes those meltas extremely accurate. And then not only that, but when you're shooting at the closest eligible target, you get an extra AP, which potentially pushes your Havocs to AP1 and your Melta to AP5. But the big deal is your chain cannon, which you're realistically going to get about 10 hits on, is now AP2. And they're fast enough to cut angles and deny cover. So you can end up in situations where you're functionally AP3 when you're denying cover and you're the closest and you're getting AP2. And these guys will just chew up stuff like even 2-wound power armor. They just force enough saves that they just chew stuff up really quickly. And I'll be honest, I think every single list starts with like 4 to 6 of these. And I'm going to put them right up here.
I'm with you. Yep.
So
I think we're back somehow. Whoever the GW designers were, they were like, "Hey, man, people love War Dog lists in this Chaos Knight situation." Like, they sure do. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Yep. But you know what? Like, honestly, even though I think if anything ends up down here, I think it's like this guy. Honestly,
yeah.
And that's probably it. Like, I think these guys down here have their issues, but you could run these ones at like an RTT and probably do fine.
Yeah.
This guy's a little bit sad. Very sad what happened to him, especially because I have some cool custom ones. But these guys are very balanced. This is probably the biggest surprise of the edition so far.
I know.
Right here. So that I'm telling you, like, throw him up on TTS and give it a try. The only thing he's not a character, but that guy kills 2 things a turn. It's hilarious. And I mean, look at this. If this was 9th edition, there wouldn't be any of these big guys of strong choice. No, certainly not a Tyrant or a Cerastus. You know, Despoiler was like almost like 700 points last edition. You know, so I don't know. I think considering that our army rule doesn't really come up very often, like I don't know. What do you think? I'm very happy with how like the book is shaken out so far.
I think it looks pretty good. They benefit from just like they've got strong data sheets. They've got decent synergy with respect to output. I think they're in a good place. And of course, you know, the overarching towering keyword, lots of output, reasonably durable. His vehicles are more durable now. They benefit from cover 2. Yeah, I think they're in a good spot. I think what's tough is the comparison between Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like 10th edition in a nutshell. It's definitely like halves, half nots. But at the start of I started getting back into the game at the end of 7th edition, start of 8th edition, and there was 4 Chaos factions at the time, realistically. Yep. You had CSM, you had Thousand Suns, you had Death Guard, and you had Demons, all of which had all sorts of different play styles, and a lot of times were just like strictly worse than like other armies of the game, or you had to like be like a mega mind, like 8-book wizard who would like combo like 4 different books and like a Forge World supplement, and then like at the time of list submission, like they would magically forget what part of the army they were, and then like they would gain the same keyword, and that's why your like Forge World character who's been out of print for 5 years can now can warp time and move 3 times in a turn and then charge and be invisible. And you're just like, okay, sure, whatever. Cool. But now we have 6. Now we have 6 Chaos factions, and they're all mostly roughly in a good spot. Sorry, Death Guard. But it feels like there's a Chaos faction for everyone. And as far as it's shaken out, like I'm pretty happy where CK is as my preferred.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I mean, like I've got some War Dogs hobbied up from the Slug Rogue League, so I'm pretty excited about
Yep.
running the table.
So I can't do it because I'm in shared screen mode, but we have a comment in the chat. It's $5 super chat from Neb, who I actually just played. That was a game I played. That's my buddy Ben. I played him earlier today, and he says the changeling. Yeah, go ahead and pin that so we can see it. But he says the changeling should have an honorary spot in this list because he'll be in every night list, and he is dumb.
Oh no, I can't pin it.
I'll do it when I exit out of here. But yes, the changeling is dumb. He should probably be in every list. Because turn 2, he pushed up Magnus to try to shoot him, and the changeling just hit the 6 and just turned off Magnus for a turn.
Oh,
and no. just absolutely hard scammed him. And Ben, I'm sorry, I owe you a beer for that.
That's tough.
Where is all right? Cool. Let me stop screen.
What a character the changeling is, man. Lone op plus utility is bananas.
So he has a good flamer. So he's actually kind of, depending what shows up, like if somebody like GSC shows up, his flamer is actually kind of scary when he overwatches them. He is stealth all the time. He is lone op. You have to take a battle shock test to target him in shooting or range. And in a CK list, you'll probably take that at -1. You then if he can see you, if he's within 12 inches, he targets you, rolls the dice. On a 2 through 5, you're -1 to hit. On a 6, you just don't get to shoot at all. And then if you manage to push through all that, he still has stealth, so you're still going to take a -1 to shoot at him, and he has a 4 pinball. So he is like scam central. 75 points. Put him in your CK list. He's real good. All right, man. That's enough of me talking about Chaos Knights. Let's move on to the big boys and IK. Do you have a tier list ready? You want me to throw up mine?
I've got it. Hold on, let me throw it up. Navigate this presentation mode. Sitch, present, screen. Give me 1 sec. All right, we're in. So I can't tell what it looks like. All right. Zoom in on this. All right, so we got Imperial Knights. All of the above, all of our choices here are going to be informed by a couple of things. One, towering is crazy because it effectively gives all of your weapons indirect with no penalties, which is super exciting. And then 2, there's 2 versions. There's 2 interpretations of the Imperial Knights rule that allows you to reroll a 1 on hit or wound rolls. There's what I believe to be a reasonable interpretation, which means that like every time you shoot or activate a knight in melee, you reroll a single hit of 1 and a single to wound roll of 1. And then there's an alternative interpretation, which is just like, you reroll all the ones for all the things all the time.
Apparently, I think we're due for another Goonhammer Cherub type situation where the wrong message just gets out there, and it can and the correction never quite catches the critical mass that the wrong info did. Because I've heard whispers in the dark that a lot of major events, including some of the GW Opens, are ruling it to be the more egregious
rerolling everything. Yeah. And if that's the case, you might as well just bump wherever these land, just bump everything up a single tier, because that's just like an outrageous increase in efficiency for any weapon you're using on any one of these chassis.
So about I think 8%. That's about it'd be more than that because you're rerolling the wound rolls too.
Yeah, it's like high 30s.
Yeah,
which is amazing. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, well, let's get into it. That's tough. Thank you, EverReadyX, saying the issue is that all other languages, I'm assuming, in the translated indices, say that it's all ones to hit wound, which is, good times. Very balanced, both with respect to Chaos Knights and to the other factions in the game. All right, let's get this bad boy started. So what we've got here is the Knight. One of the Cerastus chassis. I believe this is
Acheron.
Acheron.
Yep. This is Acheron, and he is
in the Knight Acheron
385.
Yep. So he's got the Flamer that we talked about, 2d6, 812, 200 Norris cover, the Twin Heavy Bolter, cool, Chain Fist, etc. 5 weapon involving against shooting. Same basic rules. Unlike the Chaos side, though, instead of it being selfish, he's got bondsman duties because all the Questoris chassis have, and the Dominus chassis have some sort of interaction with armature scale models. So in this case, his bondsman duty, which he benefits from if he's able to target a armature chassis, is provided to. Says that at the start of the fight phase, every enemy unit engagement range with 1 or more units with that ability has to take a battle shot test at -1. It's like, that's cool. It's okay. It's got 25 wounds, 12-inch move, 5 of invuln range. There are better options than this guy for Imperial Knights. So I don't even think like he makes balanced. I think he's outright flawed given what else is available here.
Yeah, if he was the only big 18-inch Flamer Knight, like maybe he like slams into balance because you can like Overwatch with him, and that's kind of cute. Yeah. But yeah, like as we've seen, like the Battle Shock is just, I think they missed the mark with Battle Shock. Maybe they'll tune it, later on in the edition. But right now, Battle Shock is largely ignorable. It feels like 8th edition morale. So
yeah, I'm gonna do this in a slightly different order and just run through all the Cerastus chassis.
Sure.
So the Cerastus Knight Atropos. Again, this guy with the Las Cutter, the Singularity Cannon. His bondsman duty is very good. So when a model is affected by that ability, again, that's going to be him and 1 or 2 armature chassis, depending on whether you gave him that enhancement. Every time that model makes an attack that targets a Titanic or Towering model, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. That's full rerolls to hit and to wound against Titanic or Towering. And then he himself, when he makes an attack that targets a monster vehicle, Titanic or Towering, add 1 to the hit roll for monster vehicle, add 1 to the wound roll for Titanic or Towering. So this dude is ultra consistent, high damage into other knights, essentially, or other knight level chassis. And he gives that out to one of the other armatures, maybe too, if you took the enhancement again. I think he's pretty good. I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a strong choice, given some of the options that are available, but
he's cheaper.
What do you think? He's pretty strong.
So he's 385. He's cheaper than the CK one because the CK one. So the CK one gives an aura to all war dogs of reroll hits, whereas he gives an aura, or he points and clicks to 1 to 2. And gives them rerolls hit and wound, which makes sense when you think about it, because you only have Warglaives and Helverins,
right?
And you can only pick up to 2 depending on the enhancement, whereas CK have 5 different data sheets, and you can really lean into it. So that's what like the balance kind of is. The big issue, again, just like the Chaos version, is when you look at his profile and you see 6 different profiles, it looks great on paper, but then you realize in the shooting phase, you only get to activate 2 of those weapons. And in the melee phase, you only get to activate 1. And so when you shoot this guy at big targets, which you're going to want to, his Las Cutter is D6 shots, and his Graviton Singularity Cannon, which by the way is the most metal name for a weapon ever, is D3 shots. Granted, the Graviton is blast, so you do have that. And it's going to feel really good when you shoot the Graviton cannon at someone and it's devastating wounds, and you just absolutely obliterate someone for like D6 plus 1 mortals. The thing is, though, is like realistically, you're getting 4 to 5 shots on this guy on average, and then if you just have that one turn where you roll a little bit below average and it's like 3 shots, it feels a little.
Doesn't feel good. Yeah, I mean the consistency. The full rerolls to hit wound help with consistency. So even if you do get low output, you're very likely to connect. But it's still at the whims of that D6 volume roll.
I definitely feel it's hard because he has such a niche, and when that niche is good, he's good.
Yeah.
But when it's not, and you're trying to just force him into like to just be a take all comer, it feels bad. And it's like, is that really his fault? He's cheap for what he is. I think, man, I think he's at the bottom of balance or the top of flawed. Because I think if Imperial Knights take over the meta, because they had a strong weekend this past weekend, I don't see that ending. I think this could be like a neat little tech piece, like a little ace up your sleeve, where you run like, not to bury the lead, but you run Canis Rex, you run a Castigator or like or a Crusader,
Yep.
and then you take this guy as kind of like the ace up your sleeve. I'll just kind of give you like a little slight edge into like the Nightmare. So yeah, I think where he's at is fine. We can adjust this too.
Yeah, I think you're right about the bottom of balance because it's so meta dependent. Like what is happening? Like he's going to feel great when it's appropriate, and it's going to feel off. But you'll also know when it is and isn't good.
He's such a cool model too.
Yeah,
I think you definitely get style points for bringing him.
All right, next up, we're going to roll with the. Actually, let's go with the Lancer. So we've got the Lancer. This guy slams in close combat. We talked about it already. You're slamming mortal wounds with the free tank shot. You are crushing whatever it is you want to crush in close combat with your strength 20 hits. If you're like charging something that's a vehicle, he's great. The other thing that he does is that he gives both himself and an armiger advanced charge, which is cool. That's awesome. Same vibe as we've got going on. And Chaos Knights, he really like speeds things up, especially for your close combat. Armigers, if you're taking them, maybe you're not. That said, again, given some of the ranged output that Imperial Knights have access to, I'm not sure that this guy's like the strongest choice, especially given that we have access to Canis Rex, who's an absolute monster.
Yeah. He's expensive. He's 430.
Right.
I think this guy actually has a slight synergy with Canis Rex because you can use tank shock on him for 0 CP, even if you use it somewhere else.
And hit it on Canis.
You can do it on Canis, and then you can spend 1 CP to do it for real somewhere else. Yeah. So if you charge with 3 big boys, which I think most Imperial Knight lists are running 2 to 3 big boys, and one of the other ones is Canis Rex, you could theoretically, if someone has a big brick of Custodian or Aberrants or Scarab Cult Terminators or the Mark Nurgle Untargetable CSM Terminator brick, you're like, they put it up and they're kind of like, hey, stat check, how are you going to deal with this? And you're like, I'll tell you how, 18 mortal. and then I started blasting.
Yeah.
So I really am enjoying this kind of push-pull between what they're doing with the Imperial Knights and what they're doing with the Chaos Knights.
Mm-hmm.
So advance and charge on this guy is roughly equivalent to like the big Chaos Knights just going through walls. Because if you're advanced charge a big knight, you're probably having to like steer around walls a little bit, whereas the big knight is not advanced charge, but he's just going through it. That probably ends up being a wash.
Yeah.
This guy potentially brings 2 small knights with him.
Yeah.
That's big because Chaos Knights can only put 1 big guy or 2 small guys through a wall in a phase. Whereas this guy, he can give himself and 2 of his little buddies, bring them along for the ride. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, you're pushing up with your other 2 big guys, setting up for that massive like triple tank shock or whatever. If you're trying to, especially if you go turn 1, you're trying to establish that mid-board kind of presence. You're just trying to be like a center of the table bully. He does feel strong for that. And again, like I can't overstate this enough. Having an always-on 4 Invuln shooting a melee is huge.
And that here is with Imperial Knights is in combination with a 6-up feel no pain across all the models.
Yeah.
25 ways. So this guy's sticking around.
I'm kind of feeling like you have so many good choices for the big knights. He doesn't quite place as highly with the CK by that nature. But I think I would definitely say he's at the top of balance, maybe bottom of strong.
Yeah, this guy's for the work. If you've got a plan and you need highly mobile post-combat pressure that can get there and still do the work and have enough either wounds to get there or be fast enough to get there before he takes a bunch of damage, this guy's going to do the work for you. So yeah, I think
Cliff, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick because my batteries, I thought they were at 80%, but they're about to turn off of me. So I'm gonna turn off my camera real quick and
All
go
good.
grab a fresh set of headphones. I'll be back in a moment.
Hey, all good. In the meantime, we'll move out into another Cerastus chassis, or we can just hit up the chat, see what's going on. Jim, I hear you on the magnetization. Yeah, I threw up a video of the Wraith Knight magnets in. I thought that I threw one up in Discord. But I'm gonna do another one. It's been like a pleasure to hobby. It's like really fun, really fun. Sam, you're right. We need sillier categories. You better rows here, especially like tournament staple stuff. Could have been like X and 1 instead. We'll hit it up next time. X, I've already X. Man, I cannot. People that are still with us. For context, one of the Chaos Knight data sheets had a built-in reroll ones to wound and reroll ones on damage rolls against monsters and vehicles, right? And that was the buff for that specific data sheet with a very specific role. If the current interpretation of the Imperial Knights faction rule is flat reroll ones to hit and reroll ones to wound, that is orders of magnitude more powerful than like a specific data sheet ability on an already highly targeted against vehicles data sheet, and that would just be a shame. As an Imperial Knights player who has like tons of lovingly painted big boys waiting for me to bust out on the table, that level of output is just a little egregious, especially given what potential you get with the towering keyword. It's just it's a lot. It's a whole lot. See how it goes though. Maybe it just want us to all have Housecraft rules from 8th edition. Oh God. All right, let's cruise into one of the other Cerastus chassis. So we've got the Cerastus Knight Castigator. What a monster. 5-up invuln. Again, keep in mind that like all this comes in, the additional wounds, etc. Everything's got a 6-up feel no pain for Imperial Knights. And everybody's got bondsman abilities, which ups the ante with respect to synergy. So Castigator Bolt Cannon, it's at 18 attack, 622, hitting on 3 is range 36 inches, twin linked, high output, endangers smaller vehicles because it's twin linked. Very cool. Decent melee weapon. It is what it is. The bondsman duty here, though, is pretty great. When a model is affected by the ability, its range weapons get sustained hits 1. Cool. On this 18 attack, very decent weapon. And the AP characteristic of the range weapons is improved by 1. Incredible. Now we have a 6/3/2 weapon with 18 attacks. And you can give this to either 1 or 2 of your Armiger Helverins, which suddenly makes their output significantly better. Pretty strong. Here's his own individual. Again, you'll see the pattern. There's like a buff to give out, and then an individual bonus focusing themselves. In the shooting phase, when this model is shot, pick a unit, not monsters vehicles, that's been hit. They get suppressed every time they make an attack. Subtract 1 from the hit roll. And that's until the start of your next turn, so it lasts a little while. This dude's utility is crazy. Like, he's great. Not necessarily going to be a tournament staple again, given what some of the other choices are, but I don't think you're going to be surprised if you see him in lists. I put him at top of strong choice, maybe bottom of tournament staple, depending on what the rest of your list looks like. And there's only so many Armiger chassis that can receive buffs. It's pretty good.
No, I think he's pretty good on his own rate too. He's a really good knight.
It's just, yeah, I mean, just like this, good on them for taking this Cerastus chassis and like making them worthwhile. Pumped about that plastic hit, but like, man, sustain hits 1 and an additional AP on this gun, plus a couple of Helverins is.
Yeah, that's what I like about him is he single-handedly moves Helverins up a tier, depending on if he's in your list or not.
Yeah.
Which that's always like worth looking at.
Yeah. Tim, I don't know whether you're back for it. I was thinking like top of strong choice or tournament stable for this guy. It's hard. It's hard.
I Me personally, I put him in tournament staple, but if I was the only one going to tournaments running Knights, I think other people will possibly not run him. But I think he is. I think he is about as close as you can get to tournament staple without like being in it, just because I don't think he's mandatory. But I think there's two other Knights we haven't talked about who I both think are going to make tournament staple. And I think that third big Knight is either going to be him or is it going to be someone else. And because you have that choice, I think that just edges him out. But he's tournament staple in my heart.
Yeah.
But in my head, I think he's strong choice.
Same. I think when the plastic kit drops for this guy, he's in. He's in for me. All right, off we go. Let's pick up another Forge World dude. The Acastus Knight. Oh God, I forget what this guy is.
The asterisk, whatever he is.
Yeah.
He is about 90. He's about 85, 90 points too expensive.
Yeah, I don't think he's very good.
Yeah. It's just, man, you have to really you have to drop a lot of stuff to get him in.
Yeah.
For his points, you could take the Porphyrion and a Vindicare.
Which is much better.
Yeah.
So much better combination.
That's what instead of running this guy, because he kills two Knights, he's the same durability as Porphyrion. He kills two things every turn. When he stands still, he looks at two things and he kills them.
Blows them up.
He doesn't kill three things. So that's literally what the Porphyrion does, but the Porphyrion is 85 points cheaper. Actually, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to do the math because I don't care enough, but I'm like 99% positive that if the Porphyrion if this guy was the same points as the Porphyrion, I'd still just take the Porphyrion. The Porphyrion, I think, shoots a little bit harder.
I think so too. Yeah, the output's more reliable. It just hits harder at what it's pointing at. So I don't know. He might even be like, look, I really like this model. Okay, like
I think he's. Well, let's be honest. If you see this guy on the table at an event, the guy's probably going to say, "Look, I really like this model." Okay, like the guy will literally say that to you. So I think, unfortunately, he is just so many points.
Yeah.
I think if he was when you cost 700 points, flawed choices become bad choices. You know what I mean? Like it like magnifies your bad decision making.
Yeah.
Both financially and list building. So I think he's down there for that reason.
Do not buy this guy. Let's go into the Porphyrion. This dude, again, given what else is available, I'm not even sure he's balanced in the Imperial Knight book. If he was, he'd be at the bottom of it. I think maybe he's a flawed choice outright.
I'd agree with that. He shoots harder than a Castellan for a little bit more. If so you basically take a Castellan, you drop one Warglaive, and now your Castellan shoots twice as hard.
Yep.
But I don't think Imperial Knights suffer for long range, high strength shooting the same way that ZK do.
Yep.
So I think in that context, I think he's in flawed choice. He's still good. He's still very good. Don't get me wrong. I think he's at top of flawed choice, but in the greater context, the decision is flawed, as we discussed.
Yeah. Same. And you're missing out on armature chassis buffs. It's a lot of points.
Yeah, it's a very selfish type of data sheet.
Yeah. Knight Megara, same vibe. Really got hit hard. I don't think he works anymore, at least not Imperial Knights. Makes me sad because I absolutely love this model and it served me faithfully for 2 editions.
He's in the penalty box.
He's in the penalty box, which is sad. So sad. You'd think they would have given, like, maybe he holds on to ignore his cover. Maybe they slide AP1 onto the gun, but no, just hard.
I mean, this is that meme, like the trade offer alert. GW's like, trade offer. You give me Megara and Skyrix. I give you Porphyrion and Cerastus.
You're like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And they're like, oh, by the way, plastic Cerastus.
Yeah. One upside though, if you do take this guy, So the core issue with not ignoring cover previously, that goes away, assuming that you have a Armiger chassis to hand out a bondsman ability to, because he will give himself and Armiger chassis or 2 ignores cover, which is cool. But you're still looking at AP 0. It's a bunch of hits, but there's a lot of 2+ in the game. There's a lot of 3 up in the game. It's not.
I think I'd put this guy. I can't. I mean, we're getting real pedantic. I'm like, he might be better than the Acheron, because AP0 with ignore cover like isn't nothing. You know what I mean?
True.
And this guy has battle shock rules where like the other guy has rules that actually do stuff. I think maybe the Acheron. I think maybe he slides in front of the Acheron, but not.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, we're getting into the good stuff now. Let's go with the more axes. They're slightly better because they've got 6-up field and pains. There's access to really good bondsman abilities here. The graviton cannon loadout becomes a little bit cuter, given the buff access they got. But it's the same problem that we've got in Chaos Knights, which is that like they're pretty expensive. And Hellverns do work. The only thing that I could possibly, this is something I want to experiment with myself, is maybe sliding a hybrid output set up with a couple more axes in place of a couple of Armiger Warglaives. Just to see how that goes. But then again, the Warglaive Thermal Spear is like, it's good. It hits. I like
Thermal Spear is really good. I think if anything, there could be, when I looked at the Morax, the first thing I saw that I liked was the Grav, which is strength 6, AP2, flat 3 damage. There might be a world where you run them with the Castigator to get, and you run like Volkites or something like that. Not the Grav, the Conversion Beamer. That's what I think. The Conversion Beamer is
just throwing them in the back.
Yeah, so the conversion beamer, it's one shot, but it's exploding 4s.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up, even though it's 2 shots of ballistic skill 3, you end up with like 4 hits per model. So it's very deceiving, and it's strength 6, AP2, flat 3 damage, 24 inches, but you get the exploding 4s outside of 12.
Yeah,
which is where you want to be on a double gun knight anyhow.
Conversion beam strength 10, so it's actually like that much nicer. Yeah, it's good.
Conversion beam. Oh, it is strength 10. Oh, that is good. I thought it was strength 6 for some reason. That is good. Man, am I looking at the wrong one for CK or something like that? Wow. No. So exploding 4s. So like 2 shots, but you'll get 4 hits if you don't have modifiers. Strength 10, AP2, damage 3, sustained hits D3. So unfortunately, if you combo with another source of sustained hits, you don't get sustained hits D3 plus 1. You just take what the greater value is.
Which in this case would be 3.
This guy does have some exotic weapons though that I think might be worth play into. The Graviton Pulsar. I don't love that it's D6 shots, but it is anti-vehicle 2-up. If you give that exploding 6s and or extra AP to bump it up from AP1 to AP2, and you work the angles to dodge cover, that could be interesting. I don't think the lightning lock is what it used to be. I think you skip the lightning lock. I think you skip the rad cleanser. I think the rad cleanser just is with the melee weapon anyhow. The Volkite is potentially okay. It's if you run 2 Volkites, it's 8 shots hitting on 3s, strength 8. It's AP 0 though, but it's devastating wounds.
Okay,
I think the conversion rate just isn't there with the mortal wounds. But I think there's a world where you run double beamers or double grav pulsars, double grav, and then you come up with a clever combo with one of these other knights. And you can make something work. I legitimately looked at these guys for CK. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk about more in CK. But I do think when you run out of brigands, you take these. And I think in Imperial Knights, if you don't know how to spend like that last 20 points, I don't hate a double beamer sitting in the back, just like doing work.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're a pretty balanced choice with potential to become strong depending on the ability to access devastating wounds, which is really nice with that anti-vehicle 2-up combo. That's something that will come up in a little bit when we're talking about the rest of these Questoris chassis. All right,
Yeah, for sure.
We're into the standard plastic stuff. Let's start with the big boy. Let's talk about the Night Valiant. Everybody loves him. I do. Very few people have a model Valiant that has seen the table in a non-ironic way in the last, I want to say, like 3 or 4 years, probably. Boy hits way harder now. One of the things that changed about the Dominus chassis that is easy to skip over, just given the nature of the data sheet over the last like 5 years, is that the Shieldbreaker missiles, in the same case for Chaos Knight Tyrant chassis, are no longer once per game. So this is something you're firing. It's like a great anti-Titanic, anti-vehicle weapon. You get 2 of them every turn, potentially. Hitting on 3s, Strength 12, AP6, D6 plus 1, Devastating Wounds, anti-Titanic 4+. That's nice in the mirror and just nice against other vehicles. And then, same loadout. It's got the Thunder Coil. That thing slams. In this case, he's giving out the benefit of cover to the Armiger chassis. It's something that's common to all the Dominus chassis. Gives out a battle shock test to one enemy model that's been hit by the model in the shooting phase. He's pretty good. It's pretty good. Good stuff. The sort of like less interesting part of it, at least for me, is that there's still the potential to do the like rapid ingress shenanigans. You like reserve them, bring them in, absolutely blast something, whirlwind harpoon another thing, throw some wounds on another vehicle. But without the ability to charge through terrain, it makes it a little bit more difficult to like get him where he needs to be, or at least like move through terrain and get him where he needs to be, even given the range. Towering, like, yes, with the trees. That's a good looking model, man. That's a good looking model.
Yeah, my big boy.
That is great.
Look at that harpoon.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
So, unlike previous iterations of the Valiant versus Castellan comparison, there's still like a lot of range output coming from this guy, like decent range. Things are smaller. Towering helps. I think there are stronger choices, but I wouldn't say that you'd be totally wrong for picking one of these guys up. For me, that lands like top of balanced, maybe bottom of strong choice. What do you think, Tim?
I don't think so you do have that enhancement that the CK do where you reduce AP by 1.
Yep.
And I think reducing AP by 1 on a T13 chassis that has a tulip save and can trivially gain cover, that is the sort of concept that people build entire lists around.
Yep.
It's not mandatory. As a matter of fact, you are going to potentially cut into some of the synergy of other stuff that I think is. So I don't think he quite make tournament staple, but anytime you have something that's big enough where you can build an entire list around that concept, that is automatic strong choice as far as I'm concerned. So I put it there. But you have to put that enhancement on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much required. Now we look at the Castellan. This is my favorite model in the entire Knights range. So imposing, so intense. The ranged output on the Warden, again, considering towering, considering the potential of reroll ones with everything, which is outrageous. The benefits of cover and his inbuilt reroll damage rolls of 1 to monsters or vehicles, I think gives him ranged output that's pretty crazy. If you're interested in throwing it up,
we used to pay 3 CP in 8th edition to get the type of rerolls this guy now gets for free.
Yeah, it's my God. I just realized that. Yeah, that's
we're back to Tyrannus Knights. Or was that Raven? That was Hawkshot? I can't remember.
No, it was
I think it was Raven with the rerolls.
It was Raven, yeah, with the companion.
I don't know. They basically just slammed them all together. They said you get everything for free.
Reroll all the ones that you rolled on your dice when you activate this model in the shooting phase was essentially it.
The only thing we're missing is the reroll ones on the damage.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious. What a lot of people, there's a lot of new players that weren't around 8th edition, but they very explicitly called out when you roll a D3, when you roll a D3, it's not a when you reroll results of 1 on a D3, you don't roll the physical facing of the 1. You reroll the result of 1. So because you got to reroll the number of shots on this guy too. So when you rolled a shot count of D3, you had a 1 in 3 chance of rerolling your shot count, not a 1 in 6.
Yeah.
And you were rerolling like ones for shots, hits, wounds, and damage. So thankfully we don't have all of that, but yeah, this guy, that guy with the Castellan with the built-in rerolls, and if you decide to give him the -1 AP, like that guy slams.
He's insane.
Anthony Krast had
ones,
but they're melee. That was the melee one.
Yeah, they all had reroll ones to hit melee, and then you could give one of them reroll blanket hits of 1 period, and that was like a warlord trade that you had to pay CP to obtain. So yeah, it was wild. Here's the other kicker for me is that so he has a weapon that's hazardous. He can do more wounds to himself. Again, keep in mind everybody has a 6-up feel no pain, so you're gonna blunt that a little bit. You do that in your first shooting phase. Then you use shoulder the burden on yourself to give yourself +1 to hit with all of your weapons, right? And yeah, good Lord. he just turns into a monster. I don't get it.
It was so I was jogging my memory. It was House Raven and it was Order of Companions.
Yes, thank you. Reroll ones, all ones involved with your shooting phase.
This thing was always top tier. 1 CP top tier, had a 3-up invuln. Reroll, it had Call's Wrath, which made the plasma like a real gun. It rerolled ones for everything, and it was surrounded by a gazillion bodies, so you never got to charge it.
Yep.
Yeah. He's back.
He's back. I think either tournament staple or top of strong choice. Dude's a monster. He's certainly I will be bringing it to just about every event I go to.
I think he's. Like I said, I don't think he's mandatory, which cuts him out of tournament staple for me. But I think he is probably top of strong choice, just because those built-in rerolls, and he just gets to apply damage from the word go.
Good Lord, towering is a mess. Moving along. I love it. I love the individual Canis Rex Knight Hector model. Let's use this guy as the actual Canis Rex stand-in. It's gonna be great.
All the way to the top.
I'm gonna skip. This guy's going into your list. If you're Imperial Knights and going to a tournament, he's gonna end up in a bunch of random Imperial lists as an allied knight because the dude just kicks ass. Let's quickly run through the reasons why this particular model is so good. So, increased efficiency and output. He's hitting on 2s with everything. He's got a Las Impulsor, 14, 3, 4, D6 shots, blast sustain hits 1. Awesome. Low intensity, 712, again hitting on 2s, 2d6 shots, blast sustain hits 1. Multi-laser, sustain hits 1, 4 shots with that. Freedom's Hand, 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 20, AP3, damage 9, sustained hits 1. You'll see a pattern. Freedom's Hand, sweep, 10 attacks, hitting on 2s, 10, 2, 3. Dude's an epic hero. You're taking one of them. Here are the 2 big deals. Once a turn, you can target this model with a stratagem for 0 CP, even if you've used that stratagem on a different unit in the same phase. Anytime you want. This is where you come into the tank shot, slamming for 6 mortal wounds every time you charge into something, no matter what else you've done. This is how you end up with 3 tank shots via the Night Lancer, because this has a different description, even though it's roughly the same thing with respect to tank shock. It's pretty wild. The other part of this is that for himself, every time he makes an attack, an unmodified successful hit roll of 5, scores critical hit. Just auto wounding. This guy is so efficient, and at the points cost, the incredibly cheap points cost of 4.
4 or 5. It's
5?
4 or 5. Yep.
Like, no brainer. He's going in.
Exploding 5s on everything. The 0 CP thing, hitting on 2s. He's just so incredibly good.
Yeah.
He doesn't synergize with War Dogs, but like, I'm kind of of the mindset like, who cares?
Who cares? Yeah, it's 4 to 5 points.
The whole point of bondsman abilities is so your army can be more efficient at killing people, but he's just more efficient at killing people. So like, why do in 2 steps what you can do in 1? Apply gun to forehead. You know, he's there.
This guy's
tournament stable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't see why you would have to you would have to do some serious convincing for him not to be in your list.
I would outright not believe you.
I would think you're trying to just be special and you're gaslighting yourself and you're trying to take me along for the ride, and I don't want to go on that
ride. Yeah, he's so good. So good.
Cool. What next?
All right. Night Crusader. This is where we get into the roughly the same things. Now we're really looking at output and buffs.
I was looking through the lists this past weekend, and this guy was in every single list. At least one in every list. A lot of times 2.
Yeah,
I think he's tournament stable.
Interesting. So here's the only. Well, I think there's another knight involved that is probably the other one that's running alongside Canis Rex when you're taking 3, which is probably why he's a tournament staple. The Crusader does a lot of work himself. He's got the same output as the Chaos Knight chassis we were talking about, without the ability to add double cannons. Where it gets crazy is the buff that he provides to the little guys.
+1 to hit.
Where you're getting +1 to hit on things that are hitting on 3s, which now goes to 2s. So your efficiency just skyrockets. And again, let's remember we're re-rolling 1s to hit and wound with everything. So you're getting close to 100% conversion rates on any of the output you're putting out in range.
Before we even take into account the War Dogs, this guy, if he stands still and he's bonded, hitting on 2s, exploding 6s, and then re-rolling 1s to hit and wound.
Yeah.
Or 1 hit and 1 wound, depending on your wording, but even the more conservative version is still really good.
Yeah, the output is great.
And he has good guns. He takes 2 good guns. That's the real kicker.
Yeah, you can go thermal cannon plus the Gatling cannon. You can go rapid fire battle cannon with the Gatling cannon.
I don't think
happen. I think you go thermal.
I don't think you can go wrong in any of them. I think if they have the more conservative ruling where it's 1 hit roll and 1 wound roll, I think you do thermal.
You go thermal.
I think if you get to reroll all of them, I think there's argument for rapid fire battle cannon plus Gatling. But realistically, I don't think you can go wrong. I think we might even end up 6 months from now where the lists have all kind of coalesced, and there's people out there that just say Canis Rex is cool, but they just literally just run 3 of these things and just go max violence.
Yep.
I think we'll see that list before the end of the year.
Yep. All right. Knight Preceptor. I don't think he's a particularly strong choice. I think he's balance. Seems fine. There's stronger choices out there. Last Impulsor's fine.
I think he gets crowded out real hard by Canis Rex.
Yeah. There's just no reason to take him when Canis Rex exists, which makes it pretty tough. Night Warden. This dude slams, I think.
He's pretty good.
The ability to confer devastating wounds on armatures that, again, are re-rolling 1s to hidden wounds, and potentially have the ability to have the anti-keyword for specific keywords in conjunction with that devastating wound keyword, I think leads to some interesting combinations. Then again, I don't necessarily think that he's going in every single list.
Unless an enhancement changes it, I don't think he confers devastating wounds. He has devastating wounds, but he confers the -1 damage. which I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
which I think if you're trying to go for more of like a 2-7 build, I think maybe you would run like Canis and then like 1 to 2 of these guys, and then one of them has the enhancement
Double
where
up.
they do 2, and then you just try to get as many guys going -1 damage as you can.
Mhm.
That could be something that sees play.
Yeah, I'm
I think
not
he's
sure
strong.
whether. Yeah, I think he's strong. I don't think he's stronger than the Castellan, the Valiant, or the Cascade.
Castigator.
Those guys go hard.
But he's definitely up there. He is a good choice, and I think, like I said, I think there's builds where you can like lean into what he does, and you make that like the core concept of your list.
Yep. Yep. Knight Errant. Standard dude. Gives everything assault. Gives himself assault with all of his range weapons. He can roll advanced rolls. Does the same thing for anyone he's bondsman. And whenever he makes a range attack against the closest eligible target, it adds 1 to the hit roll. He's okay. I think there are probably very specific sort of mobility-based builds where you're like really trying to get around, cut angles, swarm the board. Maybe in one of those 2-7 setups that you just mentioned, where you're like doing like a weird off meta thing, but like I still don't think it's particularly. There are better choices to be made.
Yeah, I think he's
fine.
I think he's fine, but like he's definitely he's definitely forward/filler in my opinion.
Yeah. And you don't need to
take
filler.
It's not that someone else does what he does better. It's that he does a thing that no one else does, but I just don't care.
Yep. I think bottom of filler, maybe top of flawed.
Probably.
I'm sort of talking myself out of him even being filler. Like, why would I take him over? Why would I take him over Porphyry?
Yeah, there's so many Questoris nights where I realized when we're doing this, I'm like, yo, I forgot what that guy did.
I'm like, wait a minute, why would I do that?
I had to look up the errant. I forgot the errant existed.
Oh yeah, because like dude just didn't exist really for so long. So, boy, yeah, there's so many chassis. The
Gallant?
Knight Gallant. This boy.
Canis Rex.
Again, like unless you're really trying to go hard and dedicated to that like triple tank shock every turn move, this guy fulfills the role. The Gallant's role is taken up by Canis Rex, who does it better. I don't think necessarily it's like the worst decision in the world, but yeah, Canis Rex is staring you right there.
Yeah.
And you've already got baseline reroll once to hit. Reroll everything is not that much of an increase for you, given if you're coming in on 3s. In this guy's case, he's coming in on 2s, so like, who cares? -1 to hit melee for him, cool, but like, again, I don't know. I'd rather just blow the dude up with Canis Rex in the first place and have all these exploding hits. I think balanced filler, I don't think he's flawed. I think there's some.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah. But he's also
he's flawed in the sense that there's a that not only is there a data sheet that does what he does better, but that data sheet is in tournament stable. But if you're just trying to get more of that thing and you're okay with diminishing returns, then I think in that sense he's fine.
Yep. I do think he's probably ahead of the preceptor though.
Yeah.
That poor guy. Armed your Hellbrinds. You're taking these guys. You just are.
Yeah, I think both of them are. Not to bury the lead. I think both of them are staples. You just
taking Warglaves. You're running either 2-7 or 3-4. That's going to let you get bondsman effects out on all these folks. Again, they're hyper efficient. They're very durable. 6-up feel no pains on everything. Rerolling once to hit and wound. You've got these buffs in the form of either sustained hits or cover. Like, these are great. And often if you're taking one of the Dominus chassis like a Castellan or a Valiant, they're going to get cover and have 2-ups. It's great. It's just a great setup. You're taking them. You know, details. Questoris Knight, Styrex, I don't even know why I forgot about this guy, but he's flawed. Don't do it.
So hot take, I don't think he is. I think if you're trying to go like maybe I mean, granted, this would be like more like an off meta thing. He's 425, which I don't love. But unlike CK, his ability is ranged weapons equipped by the model ignore cover. I think there's a world where you could run again. It'd be more cute than anything, but
Yeah.
I can see a world where you run him and then a castigator, and then you're just basically getting like some of your Helverins up to AP2, some of your
Right.
Helverins to AP1 ignores cover.
Just
And
effectively.
you're trying to go that route.
Mhm.
I definitely think it's more cute, and it is well off the well tread like obvious power path. Like
Yeah.
if that you can, like I said, you can do something cute and it'll catch people unaware, and I think that will work a couple times. If it runs up to a list made entirely of the data sheets in the tournament staple category, you'll just flat out lose, you know.
Right.
But like that's just how the game is. But I mean, I'm looking at this, and
It's
I
yeah.
think
I guess it's
I
not
think
bad.
I think he might be ahead of the. Yeah, he's definitely ahead
Better
of
than this.
Acheron.
Better than the Megara.
I don't know. I'd say they're both equal, kind of.
Yeah.
They're equalish, yeah. That looks good. Can't believe that. Man, the poor Acheron.
So yeah,
Acheron is like my favorite knight, and he's just not good.
I know. It's so sad.
In the edition where Cerastus are good, he is just not good.
So this is what you're really looking at. Like, I'm pretty happy as an Imperial Knights player. Like, I'm pretty excited about the fact that, like, one, already having access to all this stuff is great. Two, the models look cool. Three, they're like played one game, 1.5
I
games,
think
Imperial Knights,
yeah,
and
I think
towering
you
is
take
crazy.
yeah. And this looks good, man, because I think what you do is you literally take you take pretty much at least one of every data sheet from tournament staple. You bring in one data sheet from strong choice if you want to, and then after that, you just keep taking armatures, or you start bringing in assassins, imperial agents, stuff like that. Like that policeman kill team squad is 35 points a squad.
That thing is insane, by the way.
The Vindicare
It's
is
80.
lone operative, and
Yeah.
if he pops the warlord, you get 3 CP on the spot, which
Yep.
is huge. The Kaleidos Assassin has Vect, which is huge this edition, and
Yep.
she redeploys every single turn and is lone operative. I mean, there's a lot. I think Imperial Knights really. I think Imperial Knights and CK are both very pushed points wise, and both lists probably have like one more armature chassis than they probably should in the list.
Yep.
So I don't feel bad about dropping an armature to add Imperial agents or to add demons. And I think that puts both of them in a relatively strong spot, especially when you start playing these tactical missions. Having some like little idiots with like lone operative or deep strike, or they're just cheap that you can fling away and just get 10 points in a turn. It's every time I've taken tactical, it's come up in my games. It's been huge. So I think IK are stronger by far, but I think both knights are in a very good spot. I think if you're a knight lover, you're going to be very happy right now with this edition.
Yep, I agree. There's a lot of less flexibility, like a surprising amount. And the ability to throw in actually useful assassins and agents. I think like
so cool.
It's just great. It's a really good time to be an Imperial Knight player. One side note is that I think Canis Rex and the Exaction Squad might be tied for like most efficient use of points in Imperial lists right now.
Yes.
Like,
oh my
they
god,
are
yes.
outrageously good.
Bro, it is getting to the point where like people running Imperial lists that are like kind of suffering a little bit, like Sisters or Sisters Guard, if you don't want to play pure like Artillery Park, Leaf Blower, Grey Knights. They're just talking about taking Canis Rex and just vibing with the 5-up invul and just plopping them in.
Slam them in. Yeah.
He's a self-contained unit.
Yeah.
Cliff, we're 2 hours in, so what do you say we rapid fire through these questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to try to keep these nice and short. We're just going to rapid fire them. So first from Doug, how quick will your tier list end up in hot takes? Doug, if it is not there already, I will be very surprised because I think anytime you have a tier list, you just kind of open yourself up to either just being screenshotted out of context, or you just say something ridiculous, or you try to talk about a data sheet and then you forget everything you remember about it. You're like, now it looks like you don't know what you're talking about. So it should already be it. Coolest name out of all the knights, tier list required. We don't have time to do that. For me, it's not the knight itself, but I would say the Atropos, the Graviton Singularity Cannon That gun sounds so cool.
That gun sounds.
It sounds super exotic. It sounds incredibly deadly. Like if someone said, if I didn't have any knowledge about the game and I'm playing my knights and someone says, okay, I'm going to target your most expensive knight with my Graviton Singularity Cannon, I would just hit the big red fucking rotate button. Rotate, like, without even hearing the stats. What about you, Cliff?
I love the Knight Acheron's name. Huge fan of it. And I'm with you on the Gravity Singularity Cannon. It just sounds amazing. Very excited about it.
How do you think each knight chassis likes their eggs, or the pilot rather? I'll tell you what, Canis Rex likes his eggs scrambled. That's for sure. Or whatever it is, whatever happens when you take an egg beater and you just go right into the eggs and it like splatters out of the bowl and goes everywhere. That's the exploding fives.
Scrambled and omelets all around.
Yeah. Will an Imperial or Chaos list with Knights souped in win a GT in 10th? If yes, which faction stands the best chance? So I think GT, there's a little more room for stuff to win than like majors. You know, it can be a little bit less cutthroat. You can kind of dodge some matchups, or the one person playing the strongest list, maybe they pivoted to that. They're not like a national or international level player. They're just like a guy who's good, but like makes mistakes occasionally and doesn't have like know the army inside or out. So I think there's definitely some room there. I think realistically, it would be a faction that isn't so good that it suffers for adding in knights, but it's good enough that like knights kind of like take it to that next level. So probably demon for chaos, I would say demons and knights. Knight, or I would say possibly warriors of knights. I could even see CSM with if obliterate, because obliterators have indirect. So I think at some point, if there's a nerf to indirect, obliterators might catch collateral damage, and at that point, that leaves CSM kind of wanting for shooting a little bit. I could see that. For Imperial, I think I don't know. What do you think, Cliff? I'm thinking like Grey Knights or Sisters with Knights. I think it adds a lot for them.
Yeah, I can see Grey Knights benefiting a lot because they're so mobile. Like they have access to so much mission plan cutting angles, but having the ability to just throw something like Canis Rex, able to like figure this out, or else you're in trouble. Really nice.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so yeah, you know what? I think you convinced me. I think that's my hot take. I think Grey Knights, because I think you can make Grey Knight bricks that kind of hit kind of hard. It's just the army in general maybe doesn't. Yeah. But then you slam Canis Rex in there, you slam a couple Dread Knights, and then you're just moving all around the board, and you have just enough threats and durability to kind of like keep people from pushing on you, and then you can leverage your teleport every single turn. I think Grey Knights plus Canis Rex. I could see that list winning a GT.
Do you
think I don't know what that list looks like?
This is like getting away from short rapid fire questions. I have no clue about guard point efficiency, but is the idea of like artillery car park plus boom 400.9 that's highly efficient at shooting and combat a thing, or do they need to spend those points on like sentinels?
No, sentinels are pretty guard. So guards points are like weird. The indirect and sentinels are way too cheap, but then the tanks are like way too expensive. So to like put it in perspective, a Knight Porphyrion is 15 points less than 3 Leman Russes.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. So, you could literally just take a big Titanic Knight. I think you would. Yeah, I think you would want to. I don't think you'd want to do armatures. I don't think they hit the critical mass of anything, although it gives you a little bit of counter charge. But I think you take the Porphyrion or you take Canis Rex and you just windmill slam that guy into a guard list, and then you just take all the cheap crap from guard, and you could definitely make something happen. Because when their indirect is super undercosted, and it can easily get to like hitting on twos, I think, because you give it, or it's a lot of it has heavy, a lot of it has like +1 to hit, or it can shoot you directly. You can just deploy your artillery in the open if you have enough of it, and you shoot directly at people, so you don't take the -1 hit penalty. And then you get orders, and then if you stand still, which you are because you're artillery, you have lethal hits, so you're auto winning on 6s, and then you just have Canis Rex, just kind of being like the goalkeeper for that. It's not. I don't think it's a very fun list. I personally wouldn't want to play it or play against it. But if you were just trying to take the most efficient guard list you could, I could totally see artillery park plus a knight working. Man, my hair looks really fucked up. I need to get a haircut tomorrow morning. It's on the docket. What is the best beverage for hobby? What is the best beverage for playing game? Man, it depends. There's, for me personally, I think when you wake up, when you just accidentally wake up before anyone else in your house, and the house is quiet, and like the dog's moving around or the cat or whatever, and you just get some freshly brewed coffee, and then you just put on like the news or a show or a podcast, and then you just start painting, man, with some coffee. That is like Zen mode.
Yeah. Gosh,
Like,
yeah. Early morning coffee is great. If I'm doing like early Saturday hobby, I also have like a massive addiction to caffeine, and so it does not make me jittery. I'm like a
same, big same.
10, 12 cup a day guy. Don't do that to yourself, but sometimes it just happens. Hot cup of coffee, freshly ground. We got this like bird rider automatic coffee machine. Throw the beans in, out it comes. It's delicious. Painting, prepping models, having that coffee is amazing. Late night stuff, big fan of like scotch, smoky scotch. Sit down, continue your painting. During an actual event, I do not recommend having like a ton of beers because like it is tiring and like oddly dehydrating to like play in an all-day event. Even like an RTT, just like standing around for that long period of time and talking, just like
you get that film going on.
Yeah. So like get a light beer if you're gonna do it. Otherwise, like
my rule is I drink water until my first loss, and then that's when I break the seal and have a beer.
That's a good rule.
And it just works out better. Okay, Knights are taking a lot of heat in the community currently. How much of this is to be blamed on inherent high toughness vehicle skew, and how much on the new rules of 10th, towering, strength, toughness, adjustment, weapons, cover, etc. So I don't think it's as bad as Eldar. Eldar is kind of in the intersection of most of the gripes with 10th edition. I do think Knights are pretty adjacent. They're definitely close to a lot of the intersections of a lot of the fuels bads. Thankfully, they're relatively low on devastating wounds. The stuff that has devastating wounds is basically mostly Volkite, which is the stuff that had devastating wounds beforehand. So they can't really spam devastating wounds, and if they do, it's on stuff that's like damage to AP0, that kind of thing, like without like super many rerolls.
Yeah.
Man, it's I think they're honestly. I think Knights are, so if you're going to a tournament, like just play what you want, play what you know. I think when we have bad actors in the community, people remember them for how they conduct themselves, how they behave, how they act. They don't ever remember bad actors because they brought X army. That's just not a thing. So like play whatever's strongest, and then just overcompensate for that by being a good sportsman.
Yeah, just be cool.
And just being super chill. You're all there to play. We all know the game is not balanced, even at the best times. That's just kind of like the table stakes for playing Warhammer at a tournament. But if you can overcompensate by just being a really cool opponent, that's fine. Most of the complaints besides that, the people who are like truly like turbo salty, are just generally people you won't run into at tournaments, or people who are just like online in the game and don't actually play super much. Honestly, like Knights, I think Knights were hated way worse. People hated Knights more in 8th edition than they hate them now.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. So I think it'll be fine. So I just wouldn't worry about it. Like they're definitely not like that guy army that they used to be. Man, people hated them in 8th edition.
Yeah, well, invincible, unstoppable Castellan blowing up half your army turn 1.
But I mean, even people running like 3 bigs and like 4 war dogs, like that like there were some armies that just couldn't deal with that. 8th edition output was nowhere close to what it is now, and people just couldn't deal with it.
For the keyword thing, I do like the combination of like good saves, access to cover, the towering keyword, very high output, great strats, and highly efficient units together makes like Knights relatively easy to play, low decision making load. And if you're re-rolling all the ones, then like they're very, very consistent. So you're not really punished necessarily by probability for getting out of position or something.
I would. It's a good idea for the future. We should totally do like a dad hammer like tier list for like what you would take to a GT if you're like a dad, but you're trying to go 4-1. That'd be pretty fun. We'll put a pin in that. That'd be a good one for the future. Because right off the top of my head, I can think of like 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sodies, buy gold spray paint.
Custodes, Demons Monster Mash, both forms of Knights. Like, boom, you're done.
Run.
Yeah, all 4 of those armies probably cost as much as like 2 of any other army. How do you combat trying to improve and get reps with limited time and defiance people dooming the edition, balance army of choice? Last episode, you talked about balance to take care of kids versus personal endeavors. When they get to a certain age, you still turn it out. Okay, this is 2 questions. So it's hard. If you're trying to improve and get basically like once you get to the stage that this show is like aimed at, you're at the point where it's like a zero-sum game. You can only do more of one thing if you're doing less of something else. So generally, if you are trying to improve, you have to do 2 things. You have to try to make your practice as efficient as possible. But then you have diminishing returns because once you're super efficient with your practice, the only thing you can do at that point is just get more practice, and that's the hard part. I have a team which is super helpful because like when I'm on break at work or stuff like that, I'm always able to chat with these guys and like post ideas, blah blah blah, ask them questions, and I think like we have about 20 people on our team, and I think the vast majority of them are probably in like the consistent 3-2-4-1 area, and there's a handful that like they travel to majors and they always show up in like the top 12 or something like that, or sometimes even podium. So like I'm very lucky to have those people to bounce off, and they're always, even with all of us kind of recognizing the edition is kind of like a mutually assured destruction type edition. They're none of them are so dooming and salty that they're going to turn down games. Like we all are super invested in Warhammer. We love Warhammer. We've been through some crazy editions in the past, and so we're always down to just kind of like throw dice. And when things are just crazy, like we don't get salty about it. We're just like 10th edition, and then we just keep going.
Yeah.
So you just got to kind of find the right mindset. For tangent, even though 10th edition, I think, has kind of dropped the floor out a little bit from like a lot of the people that get tons and tons and tons of reps on these high skill cap, high skill floor armies. I think for if you're like us, where you're like a totally like dad hammer guy, but you're trying to go to GTs, you're trying to go to majors and trying to hit 4-1 or whatever, I don't think it's ever been better because you are going to have the ability to dice your opponent more often. So as long as you bring a good list, you can dice your way out of mistakes. They can play perfectly, and then you just dice them. Today, turn 2, I thought Magnus's. I just hit. He moved within changeling, and it wasn't even like a gotcha. He was standing in the middle of the board, and he moved up specifically to kill the changeling, and the changeling said, "No." Like just like he showed him who Zinch's like true favor was. See, like 10th edition is the edition of scams. So as long as you can like internalize that, like you bring a list that is durable and has a lot of damage output and just throws tons of dice, and you will punch above your weight class and you will just scam people super hard. But like I don't think it's crazy like Sigmar level where you just like scam someone, double turn, scam them again. But like for people like us who like generally know how the game works and generally like know the competitive core concepts, but are a little bit have less reps than some of like the top name players, that gap between us has closed. So you can lean into that a little bit. Find someone else who has that mindset where like they're dedicated to improving and they're dedicated to liking Warhammer, even when Warhammer is trying not to be liked or likable. It would be my advice.
Yeah. I think as long as you internalize like 3 things, really, you'll be okay all the time, no matter what. We're on 40K. One, like I say this all the time in Discord, the game's never going to be competitively balanced, ever. That's just not. Stop wishing that that's the case. It's not going to be it.
That's something you can leverage, though. You can leverage that in your favor.
Right. And then 2, while it's not competitively balanced, it is definitely a skill game. Like people are quite good at this. And 3, to get better, to increase your skill, you need to practice. Right. So like go play the games, get out on the tables, talk about the stuff with your friends that are like-minded, get the reps in, and like know that like at this point, especially now at the early point of an edition, a lot of people, this is their first transition because of the growth of the game in the last 3 years. So it's understandable the level of salt seems like higher than typical. because it's just like a lot of people going through it for the first time. It gets better. We're in beta testing. Get out, roll dice, do what you can, get your fundamentals down, learn the rules, it'll be okay.
Yeah, play tactical. Tactical missions are make the game a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So if you're playing 10th edition and you've only played fixed so far, like that actually explains a lot. If you're maybe not enjoying it, like I think playing tactical makes all the difference.
Get that CP.
Okay. Last episode you talked about balancing taking care of kids versus personal endeavors. When you get to a certain age, you still turn the hobby large capacity. Probably because I would feel less bad about like leaving the wife at home with the kid if the kid's a little more self-sufficient. For me, honestly, it's right now we're just always understaffed, and I work weekends a lot, and so like I have to. Luckily, I have Thursdays and Fridays off, which kind of cuts out one day of travel. But if I'm trying to like travel for a major, I usually have to take like 3 days of time off, and unless I know about it a year ahead of time, like where I can like bid my time off, I got to use like I got to jump through hoops. I got to do like shift swapping with people, like maybe like come down with a cold, like conveniently, like that kind of stuff. Like it's a pain. Like I'm kind of in a situation where I have a ton of time off. I accrue like 8 hours of time off per pay period every 2 weeks. So I'm swimming in time off, but I can never actually like get it approved because we're just always so short staffed.
Yeah.
Unless I do, but like the big events like Nova, London GT, like all sorts of stuff like that, where they put out their dates super far ahead of time. Like I love those because I can actually plan and put in that time and get it off.
Yeah. Same. I've got I have a large amount of responsibility at work. So like manage a team. I've stepped into intern management of another team because a colleague of mine left. So it's like a lot happening. I have like board responsibilities. My wife's a surgeon. So like the ability to travel in earnest is limited in the same way I think that Tim's describing. Like I need to know way out ahead of time to be able to plan around that. And even then, I'm still feeling that like I'm still getting texts from my team. I'm still sort of available for work. I'm usually getting messages about school related stuff or kid related stuff. So it's hard to be, you're never really going to be like totally separated from it, nor would I want to be. It's just sort of the kind of person I am. But it helps, knowing in advance helps a lot. And that's why you just hit up RTTs locally on the weekends, like get your drive or your train out, see what you can do.
Yeah. It's become, the biggest shift has been before I had a kid and it was a little easier for me to come and go. I just kind of tried to shotgun any event that was like I could reasonably reach, as long as I had disposable income for hotels, sporting rooms, travel and everything. Just because I was just trying, I figured if I was just shotgun blasting 5-round events or more, eventually I would just push up the ITC ranks just by hitting everything, and I would just essentially brute force it. Now ITC ranks don't really honestly mean anything to me. I think there's just
it shouldn't mean anything to you either, viewer.
Yeah. So I think really just making the social connections of a lot of competitive players and really good people. And now I feel very blessed and lucky that there's a lot of people on the competitive side of the hobby who I respect, that I now can just, if I want to think, if a new rules come out or a new book comes out, like whatever, I now am able to just hit them a message, and so like some people are busy, like with like their own like podcasting or like coaching service, stuff like that. And so I usually don't hit them up day one because their inbox is probably flooded. But just being able to have these people who have gone out and like just won events, and just knowing that like, hey, I can just ping them like, hey man, what are you looking at? That kind of thing. Yeah. And then on the flip side, the fact that some of them will ask me my ideas, like that feels better than like winning an event, like on a low level. Like just, I don't know, it's just like the imposter syndrome or whatever. When someone you respect all of a sudden like ask you about your idea, and then especially if they're like, oh, I hadn't considered that, and they fold that concept into something they were doing, and then you see them go and have success with it, you get to like live vicariously through it a little bit, which is, that's super cool. And so like, and then that type of like social like networking and connection, everything that feels so much cooler than going out and slamming ITC points. So for me, it's more important that the events I go to are quality and I enjoy myself, and they have good terrain, they have good venues, they have good judging, they have bonus points if my teammates are going, if I'm going to have a good time, you know, if there's not going to be like the local meta shithead that's there, that kind of stuff. Like, just I care way more about that than like the size of the event for sure.
Yeah, fewer better things in all aspects of life.
Yep, quality over quantity now for me. Would eggs still exist in the grim darkness of the far future where those only war?
Fuck yeah.
I would say yes, because Krieg exists. You know, so like if Krieg exists, like eggs have to exist. You know, they're they'll just vat grow the eggs or something.
Bro, there are planets dedicated to just chickens laying eggs for sure. Insane. Yeah.
Favorite cuisine to eat or cook? I'm going to lean into the bit a little bit. I always feel awesome whenever I'm able to produce like a perfect brisket after like, you know, 12 to 18 hours of smoking. And you do that, you cut it in the middle, you do the money shot or like all the juices. Oh man, that's really cool. Because people look at it and they're just like, they swear that you're doing black magic. So clout wise, that always feels cool. But for like just eating myself, a simple grilled cheese or like a good bowl of like ramen, not the instant ramen, but like true ramen with like the pork belly and the egg and all that kind of stuff. That's probably my favorite.
Eat Mexican as far as like cuisines. Mexican's like if I had to pick one and only one to eat for the rest of my life, that would be it. It's delicious. And cook. Let's say American, specifically a very thin burgers on the grill, specifically a charcoal grill, because that's who I am when it comes to grilling. Is like I love making those myself for other people. It's just the best experience.
All right, Sam Lemon gave us 3 questions here. So the first one, for those who haven't played yet with the big boy skew, what are some of the key benefits of the play style? What fundamentals can people learn from this? 2 things I would say off the top of the bat. Actually 3 things. So the first one is it usually reduces your cognitive load. So you can just focus on, you don't get like wrapped around the axle of order of operations to make your army work. You know, like there's some armies out there where it's just like, if you activate like a psyker in the wrong order, or if you like move this unit like into like 0.1 inches out of range of these like 3 other different units, you're just stepping on rakes left and right and getting smacked in the face. The big boy lists are a little bit more self-sufficient than that. It lets you focus more on just playing the game that's in front of you. You know, be like, okay, well, what like you get to practice like target practice, like okay, well, he has these units that are really dangerous to me, so he's going to try to preserve them. He's going to use these other units to score and to move block or whatever, or tie me up with that kind of stuff. So whenever you're doing your target priority, you're kind of like, well, do I go after his damage, or do I go after his scoring and his movement control, that kind of thing. The second thing is that it teaches you to not be afraid to get shot. I think too many people, they come out a turn too late because they're just trying to like not get shot, and they're just like doing the thing where they just put like 1 unit a turn on the objective, and it dies, whatever, and they feed it out. It lets you really see the output of several different armies, like when you're just playing nothing but knights and you're just existing, because like neither God nor man has invented a knight list that doesn't get shot at. So you just learn how to get shot. And that was, I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's like when you are like afraid of like that one thing, and then you finally face your fear, and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. You're like, okay, it's a little like getting punched in the face is bad, but like now you know what it feels like. You know what I mean? So the third one, I kind of forgot what I was going to say, but honestly, I think it's just because it's simpler, it kind of lets you, oh, that's what it was. It basically teaches you to be in the driver's seat of a game. Because maybe not that much. 4 out of 5 of your games, you need to be the one in the driver's seat. You are pushing into the middle. You are bullying your opponent. You are basically, you're the one driving the bus, and the other player is either just trying to survive until, you know, he's trying to survive the bus ride, or he's actively trying to rip the wheel from you.
Yep.
1 out of 5 games, like you actually kind of need to like hang back a little bit and just kind of like slowly kind of mosey forward versus being aggressive, and that kind of comes with experience. But you'll learn very quick because you're going to get shot at in every single game.
Yeah.
So you will actually kind of like learn the vibe of the game very quickly. And when things go wrong with a list that has like 7 to 14 models in it, you will be able to pinpoint the exact moment the wheels came off the bus.
Yep.
So weirdly enough, it's actually like if you're going to multiple, it's not a great way to learn the game, like the nuances of the game. But if you're trying to learn the high level concepts of the game itself, like it's not a terrible starting army.
Yeah, it's great for foundation. Side note on prepping is that like the hobby end of it, when you're doing any sort of kind of big boy time, not just Knights, it's just quick. It's quick to get ready. It feels fun. You see products happening quickly, and you do all the magnetization and all the painting techniques that end up being forgiving because it's such a large model. So it's just like good in all aspects of the game.
Sam's second question: a skew build of all big things can easily lead to some games being blowouts, as many armies simply can't beat the stat check. Do you think this is a positive game design choice? Something that should be a core part of competitive 40k meta? Man, I don't even know what should be part of the competitive 40k meta anymore. Like, I don't think GW knows. Like, on the flip side, so I have noticed that minus bonus modifiers, negative and positive, and rerolls on the hit roll are more rare. But with the AP and the strength squish in the game, and then the broadening of the toughness characteristic and the granularity of it, there's more. I've noticed more modifiers and more rerolls on the wound roll. And there's also, I've noticed an increase of stuff like devastating wounds, lethal hits, stuff, that kind of stuff. So it sounds like there are more, at least in theory, more avenues you can do to putting traditional damage onto Knight chassis. Also, the damage of a lot of guns have gone up. A lot of the anti-tank weapons have like just preposterous damage values.
Yeah.
But the Knight wound count per chassis has stayed the same or gone down. So like when I'm playing like my war dogs, it feels like every single war dog is like 3 or 4 failed saves away from like just getting like critical existence failure and just being Thanos snapped off the table. So same thing. The big guys lose wounds at an alarming rate. Thankfully, like bracketing isn't real anymore. You just take your -1. You just move on. You still move the same amount, which is huge. But it's very binary. Just 1 second you're there, and then another second you're just picking up your model, just wondering, like just kind of doing a double take. As far as like the philosophical of it should be, it shouldn't be, I don't know. I think once they get the balance of like the factions more in line, it'll be better because some armies just don't have the damage output, unfortunately. But overall across the game, there's a lot of auto wounds, there's a lot of reroll wounds, there's a lot of +1 to wounds, there's a lot of devastating wounds, that kind of stuff. So the mechanics do exist, and more than they did in previous editions. Question 3 at Tim: starting lineup. Now that the starting lineup for Team USA has been revealed, what is your role going to be after War Master, and how are you feeling heading into this year's WTC? Mixed feelings. Definitely some relief, a little bit. Like there's less pressure on me, but I'm also still, I am still super invested in my team's success, and I've been helping them prep. And selfishly, it's been good games and good experience for me as well. It's nice because I'm bringing my wife and my kid to Belgium, so now that I will actually be available, you know, like mentally and emotionally a little bit more than I would have been if I was on the team. Like that is in some ways relief. Like I definitely would have liked to have been representing the country, but I think we have a stellar lineup, and I think all of them had honestly probably were probably higher in skill and had more time to commit than I did. So I definitely didn't want to stand in anyone's way. Not that it was my choice anyhow. But now that I know that I'm not starting, I signed up for War Masters. So I'll be competing at War Masters. I have no idea what I'm playing. I'm excited. I'm excited for that because after that, I have a local GT. I might be going to Nova, and then I have Tampa Open, and all those should be cakewalks after coming back from War Masters. But most of them is going to be a cheerleader, and then I'm just going to enjoy Belgium. My wife has already like planned so much stuff for us, but I am planning to play War Masters, so there's at least 2 days there I'll be playing.
That's it.
Should there be a Castell and Cliff jersey to match the Turbo jersey? Yes, there should. We can make that happen. Castell and Cliff and Big Boy Tim.
I'd wear that
man,
hoodie.
man, if I could get a hoodie with my name and War Dog on it, that would be super sick. I would wear the shit out of that.
Yeah, it would be
just like a War Dog, but it's like my face. Like
yeah.
I'd wear that. I wouldn't explain it to anyone either. People would be like, "What is that?" But don't worry about
it. Like, is that you? What?
Maybe
you're good.
Flights being canceled all over, so Tim to bring this podcast tonight. Favorite carrying case for models. So if you're not playing Knights or big stuff, the Citadel carrying case is pretty good. The downside is that getting replacement foam for it is impossible. Besides that, I would say I'm drawing a blank of it. Is it Army case? Army? I can't remember. They make all those like Molly packs,
like backpack things with the slide outs and the
yeah. There's two different companies. I'm drawing a blank on what they are.
There's Army something. Yeah.
I'll post links, but the I'll look it up and I'll post it later in StatCon check or the
Citadel case. And I mean, granted, like this is where magnetization comes in really helpful. Like all of my Knights are magnetized at the hip or at the waist and at the arm. So like everything pops off, you throw it in the Citadel case. It's good to go carry that stuff.
That foam is made out of like hopes and dreams because it's really soft. So like it's crazy. You can fit a surprising amount of stuff in there. It's just the downside is that like it has like it's built where once you put it in, it compresses and it holds everything still. The downside is if you have like antennas and fiddly stuff, when it does that compression, it starts it like bends parts and everything. It's like that part kind of sucks. But I think the best way I've done it is you magnetize a tray. You take a magnetized tray, you magnetize your bases, you put them in there, and then before you put it in the case, you put like thin foam on all sides. So that way, when you're traveling on a plane or you're traveling in a car or whatever, those little small like shocks, and everything like don't transmit to the model and break your super glue. All right, we're almost done. We got like 5 questions left. How's y'all's Diablo journey? Real good. I have level 70 Sorceress. I'm on Torment, and I just rolled a Necro, and I'm probably going to stay up way too late after the show tonight playing that.
Good for Necro. Love it. In that game, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. I was told that the game is bad, so I must be playing it wrong because I'm having fun. Right? I must be doing something wrong. Bad news. You have just been informed that you must create a CK or IK list with the Warhound. How do you spend the last 900 points? Well, that's easy. For CK, 900 points is exactly 6 Brigands, which is the max fieldable amount. So I would literally just take 6 Brigands and a Warhound.
Man. That's so interesting. Does it have to be an IK or CK list, or can I do like a ally and something else? I'll just do IK. I think I go Crusader and then Halberds to Taste.
I think for IK, I'd go the Warhound, Canis Rex, Crusader, and a Vindicare Assassin. I think that all fits. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure that's like 1995.
405. Yeah. Might be there. Might be slightly over, but it's 80 points. Yeah. Might be good. You might be good.
Might be good. I feel like I'm like plus or minus like 5 points there.
Yeah.
Brendan says, Canis the Valiant, let's go. Show questions, discussions. And then Innes is trolling in the comments. And that is it. All right, so we are done. Monster episode. We managed to come in sub 3 hours.
Because we did 2 tier lists in the same one. That was it.
Hey, I thought it was really fun, man. As much as we shit talk tier lists, they are fun to do.
They are super fun. I should talk them only because other people's tier lists are bad and ours are obviously quite good. There it is.
Yeah, ours are clearly the best. So let me scroll through lists.
We're good. See, Sam, here's the thing about the ITC rankings. You need to care 0 about that and dedicate your entire self-worth and value to your CRS rankings, which are a much better indicator of whether or not you're going to be.
Cool. I think that is it. That is everything. So if you are down, I'm going to call it a night, and I'll see you guys in the Discord.
Peace, y'all. Log on. Watch our shows. See you in the Discord.
Goodbye.